Right, thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, announcements. I don't have announcements. Chief Executive?
No, ma'am.
Item 2, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apology from Councillor James Homewood, Councillor Tyler Hawkon, Councillor Will Simpson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies have been received from Councillor Holmes, who unfortunately was unwell, and also from Councillor Smith, McGrath and Bamford, who are running a bit late. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kath Pinnock, thank you very much.
Councillor Darwin.
Apologies from Aziz Dad J is not well.
Okay, thank you. Any more apologies? We've also got apologies from Councillor Paul Moore as well. Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting then. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Council held on 15th of October 2025 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you. Please vote by show of hands. Any against? Any abstentions? I think that's carried. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Members who have any disclosable pecuniary interests which could prevent them from discussing or voting on any item should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor Armour.
Item 16 refers to old age pensioners being a recipient of an old age pension. I do have an interest in that.
Councillor Sheard.
Interest in items 14 and 20. I have a family member that accepts personal independence.
Councillor Bellamy.
Interest in 14 and 20, also a family member that accepts personal independence payment.
Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst members may think it not possible, I am in receipt of an old age pension and should declare it.
Councillor Sokol.
Yeah, I'm same as the motion on pensioners. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, members. Let's just get some clarification. Councillor Munro.
I'd like to declare the same as Councillor Boat, thank you. I know I don't look old enough.
Councillor Longstaff.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the same. Unfortunately, I've had to hang up my boots a few years ago, so I'm retired now.
Councillor Firth.
Like many members here, Madam Mayor, I am in receipt of benefits.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Me too.
Councillor Sewell.
Me too.
Are there any other declarations of interest? Councillor Addy. Thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am a pensioner.
Councillor Turner.
Madam Mayor, unbelievable it is, I also qualify for state pension and a bus pass.
Councillor Pattison.
Yes, I'm a pensioner and I too have got a bus pass and the winter fuel allowance.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other declarations? No? Okay. Can I remind any members who've declared an interest to notify the clerk by the end of the meeting? I think now we've gone electronic with the form. You need to complete the necessary form. Okay. All right, when you can. All right. Item 5 then, petitions from members of the council. Are there any petitions from members of the council, please? No? Thank you. Deputations and petitions from members of the public, item 6. So we've 2 deputations this evening. The first deputation, could I invite Khalid Patel to present his deputation, please? Can you say who you are, and you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of Kirklees Council. My name is Khalid Patel, and I'm here on behalf of residents of Kirklees, particularly in the north of the borough. We are deeply concerned about how fireworks are being used in our neighbourhoods. Each year, councillors and residents report the same problems, fireworks going off for weeks on end, often late into the night in residential streets and in public parks. For many, this isn't just about inconvenience, it causes real distress. Families with young children, pet owners, veterans, older residents and people with sensory or health conditions and tell us they dread this time of the year. Kirklees already has public space protection orders restricting fireworks in certain areas, but residents rarely see these powers being enforced, and there's no public data showing when or how often they are used. That leaves people feeling ignored and unprotected. The West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service has been very clear about the risks. They say while bonfires and fireworks can be fun for friends and family of all ages, they also carry significant risk if not handled correctly. Every year, West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service respond to incidents that could have been prevented with a few simple precautions. They also advise residents to attend organised public displays wherever possible, because those events are safer, properly controlled and far less likely to result in fires or injuries. That's exactly what the motion is about. Shifting the focus to organised community-based celebrations where people can enjoy fireworks safely rather than having them go off unpredictably across our streets and estates. The motion doesn't seek to ban enjoyment or tradition. It asks for common sense measures. That Kirklees calls for tighter national rules so fireworks are sold only for licensed or organised events. That the council strengthens local enforcement where it can be, and that we can work with West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service to promote the safety advice they already share every year. Residents aren't asking for miracles, just for actions that keep celebrations joyful and safe. We want children to look forward to bonfire night, not to fear it. We want our pets calm, not cowering. And we want to prevent avoidable fires that put extra pressure on our emergency services. We're asking all councillors, regardless of party, to listen to the residents and support this motion so Kirklees can lead by example in promoting safety, respect and community spirit. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Councillor Amanda Pinnock to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr Patel. Thank you for your deputation and speaking so passionately on behalf of the residents of Kirklees. Kirklees Council recognises the serious concerns you have raised in your deputation tonight. We are mindful of the number of fire-related incidents and injuries that have occurred during this period. That is why we work so closely with the police, West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and other partners to reduce these incidents. This partnership is called the Kirklees Community Safety Partnership Board, and we meet regularly to discuss incidents and what steps we should take to address these problems. To get an even better understanding of the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, I'll be spending some time with them to get a fuller picture of how the service operates and how we can improve our partnership relationship to better protect Kirklees residents. You've raised some really important points that do need to be considered, not just at a local level, but at a national level as well. However, your wish list is not always within our gift. The regulations of fireworks and age restrictions, for example, is a matter for Westminster. It is our job as a local authority to ensure licences given to businesses are adhered to And with our partners, we raise awareness and promote public safety through our various platforms like schools, like social media, like community centres, through our community organisations and community champions. Some examples of what we are doing as a community safety partnership leading up to Bonfire Night includes, because you did mention that residents are aware of what happens. So some examples of what we do is increased police presence and patrols, ensuring that the police confidence in problematic areas where firework-related crimes and antisocial behaviour takes place. Waste removal services are engaged, which is a coordinated approach with the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and our council team to remove fly tipping and any other waste which is likely to cause mischief. Our environmental health team schedule regular checks of illegal bonfire structures throughout Kirklees. Prevention measures are taken, so we engage with schools, youth groups and other establishments where young people are to raise awareness and promote safety. Our Kirklees Community Environmental Support Officers, CISOs, spend extensive time covering specific areas identified where issues may take place. And as you've mentioned, the Council have public space protection orders, PSPOs, to help minimise antisocial behaviour to improve the quality of life for residents in Kirklees. These orders are designed to address problems like the ones that you've mentioned today in your deputation. Breaching a PSPO is a criminal offence, so it's pretty serious, and it carries a fine of up to £1,000 as well as a criminal record. I should at this point out that PSPOs are also there to control fires and barbecues. I should also point out that the Council has limited enforcement powers to stop criminal behaviour, like some of the stuff that you've mentioned. This is the job of the police force. We have no control over what the police do, but as I've said, we work very, very closely with the police as part of the Community Safety Partnership Board. And I'd like to take this opportunity to end by thanking our emergency services for their hard work and dedication, not just at this time during Bonfire Night, but all year round. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I invite Julia Roebuck, please, to present her deputation? Hello. If you can say who you are, please, and you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Julia Roebuck. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I am a co-director and co-founder of Thread Republic CIC, a fashion and textile social enterprise, and we are one of 5 organisations currently on the piazza that began as temporary contemporary, engaging thousands of people with creative practice and the creative communities in Huddersfield. We will be leaving in April due to the demolition of the piazza, and the community that we have spent years building will lose a physical space. Huddersfield is my hometown. I went to Holmfirth High School and Greenhead College before moving to London to study fashion and textiles because I thought that's where creativity happened. And whilst I've had the most amazing experiences living and working in London and Melbourne, Australia, I returned back to Huddersfield 10 years ago. And I could never have imagined that after all my experiences, I would return home to find myself surrounded by the most talented, diverse, friendly, passionate group of creatives that I have ever met. And it is a great honour to stand here today, not just representing textiles and fashion, but the wider creative community of Huddersfield and Kirklees that comprises artists, designers, makers, curators, producers, community leaders and educators. The creative ecosystem here is not theoretical, it thrives and is alive and well and alive in studios, workshops, classrooms, community centres, places of worship. We have been building a physical hub and space and community for this community to come together. With our cultural heart, we have a unique opportunity to use this regeneration to give this community a longer-term, permanent home. A place where creativity, education and enterprise can work together, where people can meet, exchange skills, knowledge, contact, research, build innovation, support each other, and more fundamentally, support the next generation of creatives. We need this more than ever. The world looks very different to them in 2025 than it did to me in 2005. So we are here today to propose that the Queen Street plot within the Our Cultural Heart Regeneration Programme be designated as what is outlined at the moment as a multi-opportunity space, and I know that it's talk about car parking there, but if we can combine some kind of physical parking infrastructure with a permanent hub for the creative industries in Huddersfield, we have an amazing opportunity to build a revenue-generating site that would provide studios and workspaces for visual artists, craftspeople, makers, designers, meanwhile units for startups, retail, concept pop-up, and enable a constantly changing and active and engaging programme of activity in that space, as well as longer lease spaces for more established organisations that have been working there for years, such as the Children's Art School, Collaborati and Thread Republic. If we do not build this space, we are going to miss out on millions of pounds of investment. In the Creative Industries Cluster Plan that West Yorkshire Combined Authority released this year, they are planning to increase the GVA from the creative sectors in West Yorkshire from 2.2 billion to 4.1 billion. And increase the number in paid employment, including freelance, a massive part of our community in the creative industries, from 60,000 people to 110,000 people. If we do not build an infrastructure to welcome those communities, we will not get that investment, we will not get that money. And we are here standing from West Yorkshire. Yes, I'm talking about the physical space, but by giving that space and building that space, you recognise and champion the economic and social value that the creative sector brings, embedding it in a cornerstone of the town's community and regeneration. This absolutely identifies with the existing initiatives and ambition of Our Cultural Heart, but it will help to enhance that offer by providing opportunities for much longer visitor engagement, a constantly changing programme that reflects the needs of our diverse and passionate creative communities in Huddersfield and the wider Kirklees area. We bring national arts investment with the we have nationally recognised best practice models of arts and cultural engagement in town centres and lifelong learning on the high street. These are very important aspects of which we intersect with, combined with creative health and mental well-being offers that brings and the money that could bring in. We support local volunteering, training, skills, employment opportunities, and we have fully invested in helping to position Huddersfield as a national centre of excellence. But we cannot do this without your support to build the physical infrastructure we need. We can't do this from sheds and kitchen tables and places of worship and community centres. This community deserve a flagship space. And I'm probably up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Julia, for that very passionate plea for the cultural and the creative talent that we have got here, not just in Huddersfield, but in the whole of Kirklees. And I mean, you're putting us right in the heart of West Yorkshire, even, which I could well agree with you on that. And thank you for sharing your ideas, as I know you have. I mean, both here today and with officers about your ideas for Queen Street plot. So, I mean, firstly, I do want to acknowledge the fantastic work that is happening in Huddersfield's creative community that they have delivered, which has brought real vibrancy to the town centre. And Chloe knows I've visited the Make Centre several times, and it's great to see things that are happening in and around those empty spaces, which you've really been able to make good use of. I mean, it's not only has it been, you've actively used those empty spaces, but it's created opportunities for artists and makers and the cultural organisations to thrive. I mean, this contribution has been invaluable in demonstrating the power of creativity to regenerate and connect communities, and it's something we do deeply value. I mean, your proposal for a permanent creative hub on the Queen Street plot is thoughtful and does align with the ambitions or many of the ambitions behind our cultural heart, to make Huddersfield a destination for culture, learning and enterprise. And we do share that aspiration to embed creativity in the town centre and to support the growth of local talent. But as outlined in the Cabinet report in September, all options for the Queen Street site are being assessed for commercial viability. Currently, a multi-storey car park is considered the most viable option without significant public sector subsidy. This would help meet accessibility needs for visitors and reduce pressure on parking within the town centre, supporting the arrival experience of our cultural heart. To achieve viability, the car park would need to have multi-floors. We have also received other suggestions other than your own, which includes combining the basement parking with a ground floor cultural hub. I mean, this is an innovative idea and will be shared, as will yours, with our Cultural Heart team for consideration as part of ongoing feasibility work. However, it is a costly scheme, and a car park would require multiple floors to achieve commercial viability. We do remain committed to ensuring creativity is visible and accessible in the heart of Huddersfield. Our ambition is to work with the creative industries and cultural organisations to identify how we can secure a permanent home for this sector within the town centre while balancing financial sustainability and regeneration goals. So we do want to keep you there somehow. So thank you again for your passion and for taking the time to share your ideas. We look forward to continuing that dialogue, this conversation, and working together to make Huddersfield a place where culture and creativity can thrive. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public petitions? No? No. Okay, thank you. So we move to item 7, public questions. We've had 8 public questions have been received.
If I may, in accordance with Council Procedure 47, I'd like to move that we suspend Council Procedural 6, and there isn't a subsection. For context, this says that a member of the public who has put a written question in may, if they're in attendance with the consent of a chair, ask a supplementary. What the members of the public are being told is, if for some unforeseen circumstance, family issue or other, you are not able to attend, your supplementary question will not be asked. If you look at the next paragraph before, it suggests an inequality, because that says the member to whom the question has been put may nominate another member to answer. I would move that we suspend standing orders and allow a member of the public to nominate someone else to ask a question in their supplementary in their stead. The original has already been asked. We know all about that. All this is allowing the supplementary to be asked, and I would move a suspension, Madam Mayor.
Can you just clarify which standing order I missed your standing order, Councillor Bolt.
Certainly, Madam Mayor. It's Standing Order 11.6, and then we start with the third paragraph, which is the one that says you've got to be here to ask a supplementary. You can't have somebody else ask it in your stead, whereas the person to whom you're asking it can get somebody else to answer in their stead. So it's just a matter of equality and a bit of compassion if a member of the public can't turn up. No.
Hi, my name is Samantha Lawton. I'm the Monitoring Officer for the Council. Thank you for your motion, Councillor Bolt. Unfortunately, there isn't provision to enable that to happen in the current constitution as worded. I do take your point. There is a different way to deal with that in relation to members. And if that is something that we wish to change, we will bring that through the Constitution Working Group, and so that all members have an opportunity to discuss that, and then that will go through the Corporate Governance and Audit and Committee team.
With respect, Madam Mayor. Suspension of standing orders. At any meeting, a motion may be moved to suspend the use of any preceding procedure rule. So all I'm saying is, not we abolish it, not we permanently change it, but as is phrased in the council procedurals, we suspend it. This is something we've done on many occasions. We may well come back again to today. It is a suspension, not a change. It's allowed for in the procedurals, Madam Mayor. If it's seconded and goes to the vote, it is carried by the meeting.
We'll put it to the vote, Councillor Bolt, for suspension of the standing order. Yes, yeah, but it needs to be seconded. Councillor Lawson, are you seconding?
No.
Okay, we will use the consoles then, please. All those in favour of suspending standing orders in order for another member of the public to ask a supplementary question, please vote for any and vote against, etc. Okay. Has everybody voted that wishes to vote? Yes? Okay, so the agreement is to suspend the standing order in order for a member of the public to ask a supplementary question. However, Councillor Bolt, this needs to go through the Constitution Working Group, as the legal officer has said, in order for this situation not to arise again, for there to be clarity. Okay? All right, thank you. So we will move to the public questions, and the first one is Avalon Rawlin. The questions have been received and the responses have been published. Supplementary questions will be permitted if the person who submitted the question is present at this meeting. However, that part has been suspended. All right. So if you'd like to ask a supplementary, thank you.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. So my supplementary to question one, which I believe is to Councillor Pinnock-Callow. There you are. So could you confirm, you've obviously described a number of things that are taken into account when deciding between EPA and planning conditions. Could you confirm that there is a documented and standardised criteria evaluation process to make that decision in each case?
Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you. So you'll see from the written response there, it's given some detail about how the local authority, actually the procedure that the local authority undertake, particularly in relation to planning itself, and there will be policies and procedures in respect of that, and also in respect of the evaluation as well.
Yeah.
So it's difficult really to specify. Planning is not specifically my area, but there will be processes in place that specifically deal with what you're referring to. What I can't do is directly point to those particular places.
Okay.
If you need more information, I'm happy to provide that.
Thank you.
Supplementary to question 2, please.
So this one is to Councillor Turner, who answered the initial question. Specifically regarding the timing of the temporary or otherwise stop notices that you referred to, were those notices issued before or after harm had been identified?
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, Avalon, for the supplementary question. I can't give an honest answer because I don't know exactly the cases of each stop notice. We issue a stop notice when something comes to light that needs an immediate response, so they're immediately, usually issued the same day as we're aware of an issue. But whether they've been issued after harm, I couldn't honestly tell you. I will find out for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I invite Tracy Ibbison to come forward, please? A supplementary to question 3. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you please confirm, as it appears from your answer, that the Council does not independently verify the monitoring data submitted by developers for compliance with the stated technical guidance?
Councillor Addy.
I don't believe that's my question. 5.
Question 3.
Sorry, I really apologise for that. Could you just clarify the last part of your question, please?
I'll read it again. Please confirm, as it appears from your answer, that the Council does not independently verify the monitoring data submitted by developers for compliance with the stated technical guidance.
Thank you for your question. Appropriate action is taken by officers who put forward the appropriate needs from the developers. Developers are expected to use appropriate methods, and therefore appropriate work is undertaken. If the need to verify is identified, then that will be taken, but in action, in normal circumstances, the appropriate action has been followed. I can double check whether we ever verify, if you like, and I can send you that.
That would be really helpful, thank you.
Supplementary to question 4.
Yeah. Can you confirm that the Council does not make environmental monitoring data sets publicly available?
Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
Question 6.
It's question 4 on the public
Thank you.
papers.
Yes, sorry. Could you ask the question again for me?
Can you confirm that the Council does not make an environmental monitoring data set publicly available?
Yes. I can confirm that. And there are a number of reasons why that happens, why it's not public. Because it would amount to a wealth of information if everything the local authority did was published. Also, the information that's provided, it may be difficult to decipher, people may struggle to interpret it, so that's another reason why you won't find that happening. Obviously, given the large volume of information, it's going to be really expensive to do that and to store it and have it all in one place. And just really to confirm that this isn't unusual, this is what local authorities do up and down the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question 5 on the public papers is to Councillor Turner for clarity. The supplementary then, please.
Thank you and hello again. So, based on your answer, am I right in thinking that regardless of who provides the building control services, that the Council still retains the statutory power to intervene and take enforcement action where the building regs have not been complied with?
Councillor Turner.
Yes, but because building control is a commercial service, if a developer is employing their own building control company, unless there's overwhelming evidence that their building control operator has either, say, gone bust or is not complying, they'd have to be really overwhelming. We really don't intervene very much at all because it's their responsibility to employ their building control operator that is reliable and is doing their job.
Supplementary to question 6, and the question was to Councillor Turner, so supplementary to question 6.
Can you confirm that the release of pre-demolition survey documents is decided by the Council on a discretionary basis?
Pre-demolition information is released as and when required by the legislation under planning law.
Thank you. Can I invite Owen Ibbison, please, forward? And questions 7 and 8, Councillor Addy, they're yours, okay. If you, supplementary to question 7, please.
Although the Council does not have a duty to collect local illness data, can you confirm that there is a statutory duty to investigate and assess exposure to asbestos? For example, when residents have sent evidence of asbestos in their residential properties to the Council. And what would the process of that investigation be?
Councillor Addy.
Thank you for your question, Owen. What I will do is I will send you a written response with the full detail of any processes that we would do in those cases. And obviously we're not talking about specifics there, but obviously the Council undertakes very seriously any concerns about asbestos and will follow whatever is needed to do. In the larger picture, as your response points out, it's a health and safety executive issue.
Supplementary to question 8.
The data you've mentioned relates to mortality, hospital admissions and regional infectious illness, but does not capture early stage or non-infectious respiratory symptoms. Could you please confirm, yes or no, whether the Council has any way to monitor respiratory issues at a local level in Spen Valley?
Councillor Addy.
Where concerns have been raised, we will have been in touch with the local GPs via the primary care network to ensure that there have been no rises in respiratory conditions in those areas. And I can confirm that has been done. There are no concerns being raised at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That brings us to the end of item 6. Item 7, rather. You've got me now, getting the wrong number. Item 8, West Yorkshire Combined Authority minutes. To receive for information the minutes of West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The minutes are here for noting. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Councillor Scott.
Rule 15, procedural 15, Rule 15.3, I'd like to propose that we bring forward all the motions, that's number 12, 11, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 and 22. And can we move that to the vote?
Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor. Who's seconding it? Councillor Lawson or Councillor Lawson? Okay, thank you. So the motion has been put that all the motions be brought forward. Are you saying before this item or after this item, Councillor Scott?
I'd like it brought before this item.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so the motion has been put to bring forward the motions and it's been seconded. We will go to the consuls. Councillor Darwin, did you have something you wish to say on item 8 or on the proposal? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. We will go to the consuls. So vote for if you want the motions brought forward. Against if you want them left on the agenda as they currently are. Okay, has everybody voted who wishes to vote? Yeah. So that motion has fallen then. We will resume item 8, West Yorkshire Combined Authority minutes. So could we have any comments or questions regarding the minutes, please? Councillor Darwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Combined Authorities Local Nature Recovery Strategy aims to balance biodiversity with housing growth. How will the leader ensure that Kirklees housing allocations do not undermine the borough's environmental commitments, especially on green belt, land and urban green space? Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
I think the simple answer to that is that that is a planning issue and it will be taken, it will be dealt with as a condition or whatever as part of the planning, any planning application.
Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to ask whether Mayor Rabin is going to report back, and when and how, from Rio, and is she enjoying herself? Because we're all very concerned that, you know, she's having a nice time. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. I'm sure she did a very valuable job out there, at the same time as no doubt enjoying being in Rio and in experiencing a different culture, different scenery, etc. She will be coming to report back to us in January.
Thank you. Councillor Donna Bellamy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Referring to the minutes, the mass transit programme has now slipped again, and with the strategic outline case pushed back to March 2026 and another £40 million committed. Could the leader tell us what tangible benefits Kirklees residents can actually expect to see in the first phase, and what assurances she has that investment won't just be concentrated in Leeds and Bradford but fairly shared across all districts?
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you for the question. We have got assurances that whilst we're not in phase one, and that does concentrate on Leeds and Bradford, though there is a spur from there to the White Rose, which will link with to a certain extent, with improvements to the rest of the transport infrastructure in West Yorkshire and Kirklees. We have got assurances that we will benefit from phase two. That is definite.
Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the previous council meetings, the leader undertook to brief all councillors on the work of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. When will this briefing take place, and how will councillors who are not members of any Combined Authority committee be kept informed and able to scrutinise decisions affecting Kirklees? Given that the Combined Authority has delegated increasing powers and spending authority to the Mayor and senior officers, what assurances can the leader provide that Kirklees Council retains democratic oversight and that all political groups will have the opportunity to feed into regional decision making? Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you for the question. I did not give that assurance at the last meeting. I did say that perhaps we should be looking at a better way to ensure that all members are briefed, and that is certainly something I've just even been having conversation about today. But having said that, these minutes are here. The West Yorkshire Combined Authorities minutes and all the reports that go to not just the main board meeting but all its subcommittees are available on its website for any member to certainly read and to find out what is actually going on. There are various methods which you can always feed in. Any member can always feed in any comments to any of our representatives. And it isn't just the Labour group that has representatives on the different committees and the main board. There are other groups also represented there. So any member can always feed back in that way. But the first thing to do is to actually appraise yourself of what's going on in the first instance by just reading the minutes and the papers. I do hope to provide in the future a more fuller, or not fuller, but a briefing paper for all members. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Anwar has very eloquently said a lot of what I was going to say, because I share his concern very greatly about this. That's okay, you don't have to listen to me for as long. There are several things in these minutes which seem to me to be very important issues about which we should know a lot more. Things like the West Yorkshire Local Remediation Acceleration Plan, which most definitely does not describe what it is on the tin, because that's a very important issue about high-rise buildings and cladding, which we should all be aware. We've got cluster action plans referred to, which is an awful lot of money being spent across the borough. And we've also heard Councillor Darwin refer to the local nature recovery strategy, about which I would be very interested to know more. So a couple of questions. Firstly, when the combined authority are deciding on such policies as the local nature recovery strategy, do these trump our own policies in Kirklees? Do we have to change policies to coincide with theirs, or do they just come up with something that we do in any way and doesn't really matter? The second thing is, I do think it's rather supercilious of the leader to say, go away and read the papers and you'll know what you're talking about. Yes, the papers are there. Would it be an idea, for instance, as a start, now that we've got electronic papers in front of us rather than printed pieces of paper, to actually put the appendices in the council papers so we can actually read in full as to what is proposed? Because just like in our council minutes, it tells you all the questions everybody answers, it never tells you what the answers are. In this case, we're told an awful lot about Appendix 1, Appendix 2, CDP, Appendix 3, and none of them are there. So I think there's two things really. I would like to take up offer of telling us more about what's happening at the Combined Authority, but secondly, I think we can do more to inform ourselves without very much effort as to what actually these policies and strategies that the Combined Authority are agreeing are all about. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you again for the question. I would also hasten to add, I could add to my previous answer and to this one that, of course, all the meetings of West Yorkshire Combined Authority are webcast as well. And I'm a bit perplexed. I did think that if you, in those papers, if you actually did click on an appendix, that was available, or it certainly is available, because whether it's, I'm not quite sure how you actually get at it, but it's certainly there in the papers which are published. In term, yes, remediation, cluster sectors, the nature of it is all very much West Yorkshire Combined Authority speak, I have to admit, and certainly it's something that if we can look to taking on board your comments in terms of providing a better briefing for all members, then certainly some of that will be explained. Thank you.
Councillor Andrew Pinnock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, like a number of other members, would like to have a bit more information about some of these plans that are referred to in these minutes. And in particular, I'll come to that in a minute. One of the things that has really annoyed me over the years, and that is it is not clear at all where the responsibilities of the individual districts in West Yorkshire end and the Combined Authority begin, or the other way round, if you prefer. And it's no good saying, as one officer said to me, oh, we all work together. Well, that may be true, and in many ways I should hope you do, because that's the way you get things done. But if it's not clear which authority has responsibility for which part of the activity, then I'm sorry, but that's not good enough in my book. I think it would be far better if it was much clearer, even if it ended up with the odd demarcation dispute from time to time. You would at least then find out whether you were on the right lines or not, I suspect. So that it kind of annoys my sense of neatness in terms of the way the two authorities, or 5 against 1 authority, work, how in practice. The local remediation strategy, it's a remediation acceleration plan. Now that's a very interesting word, acceleration. What I think I would like to know is how this plan fits with the local plans of the different districts. Now, of course, there is a problem there because the different districts are at different stages of local plans, and probably always will be, unless somebody or other draws it all together into an overall. Well, I'm not saying they will do, but there is a degree of raggedness round the edges, it seems to me. The thing that would concern me, of course, is, as Councillor Hall mentioned, if we are in the process of developing our local plan, which we are at the moment, to what degree do we need to make changes because of something the Combined Authority has done? That this is where it needs to be clearer who's got responsibility for what and how far can they go. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit nitpicky, but I do think that it would help get rid of disputes. Thank you.
Councillor Pattison. Thank you. Just to clarify what you're actually talking about, are you asking who's responsible not for the individual authorities of West Yorkshire, but between all of the Combined Authority and the 5 authorities together? Not individual. Okay, thank you. So that's yeah, the metropolitan authorities, the Combined Authority. Okay. I mean, I think much of it is actually that who does what is actually set out in legislation, either by existing legislation that set up the Combined Authority, but also there's new legislation coming on board in terms of the devolution bill, which will, again, sort of clarify issues such as not so much, well, I take it when you're talking about the local plan, you're talking about the spatial use of spatial land, etc. in West Yorkshire. I mean, again, the new devolution bill will put some responsibilities onto the Combined Authority, but it will also leave, I believe quite clearly, responsibilities with ourselves. Just in terms of the remediation acceleration strategy, I mean, we're lucky because we have actually dealt with that issue, or the cladding issue, to make it a bit clearer what that's talking about. In Kirklees, we've already dealt with that. All of our buildings, which on the whole are actually council-owned, have been, or remediation plans have been put in place, and that's all been dealt with. We haven't got the same situation as Leeds and Bradford, for instance, where they've got a lot of privately rented, large residential property, tall residential properties to deal with. Yes, I think it is, quite clear who is meant to be dealing with what. I mean, the local authority, the 5 local authorities, we do work with the Combined Authority, and there is agreement between us all as to who does what, and it is, I believe, quite clearly set out, and we do take those responsibilities seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Starr. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, obviously, to the leader. The Combined Authority has now committed over 120 million to develop mass transit, a system before a full business case has been approved. What mechanisms are there in place for Kirklees councillors, residents, to see detailed spending plans, routes, options and risk assessments, particularly given that much of that financial information is classed as exempt? And I've got a second one, if you don't mind, Leader. I'll ask you the second one. And I think you've answered partial of this. The new local remediations acceleration plan highlights fire and structural risk in Leeds, but makes no reference to sites in Kirklees. What action have you, as a leader, taken to ensure that contaminated or unsafe sites within Kirklees, such as former industrial land and tower blocks, receive equal priority and funding?
Councillor Pattison.
And the last part of that question has, I have to say, has got absolutely nothing to do with the remediation acceleration strategy, which is all about the safety of people in high-rise flats and to ensure their safety as soon as possible from dangerous cladding on their buildings. In terms of mass transit, I mean, I'm not quite sure what it is that you're actually looking for, but certainly all the plans, and there's been an awful lot of consultation that's gone on across the whole of West Yorkshire about the routes, about other aspects of this. It's well documented exactly what is happening in terms of mass transit. Thank you.
Councillor Caroline Holt. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to question the Combined Authority's decision to spend £6 million on putting a cycle path from Dewsbury to Cleckheaton when we already have two cycle paths, which are Route 66 and the Greenway. The Greenway has had extensive money spent from the Combined Authority to upgrade from Liversedge to Cleckheaton. There is the plan for Cleckheaton, which is to bring the Greenway down into Cleckheaton for cyclists. Residents and businesses are all hugely disrupted at the moment because they've only just started in Bradford Road and have been now at it 3 months. Businesses haven't been able to get trade because they can't get near to park their cars to actually use the businesses. They're not going to get any recompense for that. And they're only going to put one cycle path on one side of the road and moving the road completely across.
Councillor Holt, can you tell me which minute you were referring to, please?
It was a general question as to when a survey and how it has come about that this has come into being. So if it's not in this one.
This is questions on the minutes.
Okay.
So it needs to be on the minutes. Okay.
Fine.
Otherwise, it can be put where we have questions to different members.
That's
All
fine.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor John Lawson. Is this on the minutes, Councillor Lawson?
Of course, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when Mayor came to scrutiny last time with these minutes and these subjects, I asked her a question. I'll ask you the same question I may have asked you before. Perhaps you've got an update for us, which is, would you support, and how would you go about, would you support, though, the extension of the use of disabled bus passes before 9:30, so that people with conditions that who can still work, who still want to work, can use their bus passes to get to things like morning shifts and what have you. Would you support that, and how would you go about doing it?
Which minute are you talking about?
Mass transit.
Mass transit, thank you.
So, I don't think that is a question on mass transit. That is a question, certainly on, if anything, on bus franchising. But it's not about that. It's actually about the cost of bus passes. And there's an awful lot of different aspects that we need to take into account, or Combined Authority needs to take into account, and we need to feed into that conversation because it isn't just disabled people who might need a free bus pass before 9:30. Should we change the time limit? There's all sorts of questions to be asked, and then of course the cost. And the cost falls upon the Combined Authority, and they have a very specific budget which they need to consider when considering these aspects. But it is actually being looked at the moment.
Councillor Habiban Zaman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under the Labour government's forthcoming devolution bill, new powers will be devolved to combined authorities. What discussions has the leader had with the Mayor and other leaders to ensure that Kirklees retains its independent voice and that decisions about our borough are not centralised at regional level?
Councillor Zaman, which minute are you referring
it's
to?
It's part of the item in the minutes.
Sorry?
She was going to come back to us and give us a briefing, wasn't she, on this item?
I can't find that in the minutes, so
it is.
Is there something in the minutes? It's been found. Mayor's update. Thank you. Councillor Pattison.
Yes, my simple answer is that the Mayor does always update us on the process of the devolution bill. We all have an interest in making sure that all of the authorities, and the combined authority as well, retain some independence when this bill is finally passed. Thank you.
Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, reflecting the leader, as earlier in response to one of our colleagues, talked about Kirklees benefiting from transport system and a link to the White Rose. Perhaps you can update us on when the failed White Rose railway station will actually come into being. And
Councillor Bolt, which minute are you referring to?
I'm referring to the leader's response, which is about transport, Madam Mayor. The leader's already responded to this, so therefore it must be appropriate. We can ask the leader a question. Also, it's been referred that we can look at the papers for information. I would refer colleagues to page 11, item 20, when I was very interested to read about school travel policy. That's something of great interest to Murfield. So looking at school travel policy, and as the leader has said, look at the papers, it's all in there. No, it isn't, Madam Mayor. This is devoid of any information. You know, it just says that the decision was released for implementation. Had there been a hyperlink, we could have looked to see what Mayor Brabin, when she's back from Rio, will be doing for us about school travel. Bus franchising is in the report, and it makes a lot of it, which has been something that's been going on for some time. So could the leader tell us, and maybe, if not, bring back an answer to council, the Mayor Brabin's idea for buses in West Yorkshire, how much will this cost per household per year in Kirklees? I think, you know, this, as has been alluded to, some financial figures hidden. It's in the report that it's a priority, and I think it's incumbent to tell the residents of Kirklees how much this scheme will cost them. You referred to Councillor Holt and saying, is it in the report about something? Well, again, it mentions in the report portfolio update, but it's scant on detail, and I'm sure no meeting of the combined authority would be complete without a report on major highway schemes and also active travel. So therefore, as the leader was at this meeting, as it says in the, could the leader tell us, under portfolio report, where the question Councillor Holt asked about active travel was discussed, and particularly the A638, because the question that is often lacking on these is there's the capital investment to build them, but there's no maintenance to sweep them or to look after them in winter. So despite the fact that this segregated cycleway is only on one side of the road and it's not actually going on the side of the road that's in front of the baths, yeah, it must have been discussed in a portfolio update. So can Councillor Holt have a report on that from the portfolio update?
Councillor Pattison.
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to in portfolio updates, but certainly the A638...
It is an update by various portfolios, one of which is active travel at the combined authorities. I hope that helps.
Councillor Pattison.
The A638 was discussed at the last meeting, and it was passed as a project. There isn't. There was so much that you were asking there, Councillor Bolt. I'm afraid that I've probably missed some of it. The White Rose Station has not failed. It has been delayed, and It has been delayed, but it is shortly back on, it's certainly now back on the agenda. School travel, there's been a long consultation about that. It doesn't affect Kirklees in this first year. It will in the next year, but I don't think there's any cost particularly, well, it depends which, again, exactly what you're talking about in terms of school travel, but the actual bus fares are not yet set for next year. That's still to become as part of the combined authorities budget discussions. Yeah, sorry, I can't remember any of the other things that there's so many things that you did raise there, but I think if you'd like to remind me later in writing, I will make sure you get some sort of response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Masood Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With bus franchising due to begin under the Weaver network model, what guarantees can the leader give the local routes in towns such as Dewsbury, Batley and Ekman-Wyke will be protected and that the fares and coverage will not worsen during the transition?
Councillor Pattison.
As far as bus franchising goes, the whole of Kirklees does actually benefit from being one of the first tranches to go out for bus franchising, and there is a commitment that any bus franchises will not provide a worse service than May 24 or March 24. I can't remember at the top of my head at the moment, but certainly there's already that commitment. Thank you.
Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. My question relates to the response that the Leader of the Council just gave in respect of school buses. West Yorkshire's cut some school bus services. Kirklees wasn't on that list. In the answer that the Leader of the Council just gave, she said those cuts to the Kirklees buses are coming next year. Could you clarify exactly what the plans are for West Yorkshire? Because if we're back into cutting our school buses, then I think we're back into the discussion around the incredible amount of spend within school transport and the fact that school buses is the most economical way of getting lots of kids to school. Thank you.
Councillor Pattison.
Yes, the schools that will be affected, and they will have been contacted by any cuts to school bus services from not this year but the next year, are St John's, Fisher and Sallandine Nook. But the Combined Authority have already been in touch with them.
Thank you. Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. On item 15, let's be clear, item 15, project approvals, Huddersfield Bus Station, extra money was allocated to the canopy element of the bus station. Extra money was allocated, but it was doubled. It went from 1 million something to 2 million something. Could we have a brief explanation of why that occurred? Because it's an extraordinary increase in one element of the bus station.
Councillor Pattison.
I can't give you the exact detail, but certainly the scheme has had to change because of as they've started to undertake the work on that, then it's not as it. I mean, not some of the assumptions that were made in the first place have proven not to be shown to be true, and so it's just had to change. I can't give you the detail, but I know that much. But I can always let you know.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to respond to points raised by Councillor Masood Ahmed on the bus franchising, the network will be immediately restored as soon as franchising takes place to the March 24 levels. So any services that have been cut by private operators since then will be restored immediately. So there'll be, in fact, a boost, not a reduction. And at the last Transport Committee, we extended funding for the Mayor's Fares scheme to coincide with the beginning of franchising. So the fares will remain unchanged, pending extra bus service improvement grant money from the central government budget until March 2027. And in response to Councillor Bolt's point about how much will this cost taxpayers, I think I should remind members that our constituents are already paying for their bus services. The difference is that under a franchise model, the private profits will not be put into dividend pockets, but will in fact be used to reinvest in the system. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any other speakers listed, so we'll end item 8. We will therefore have a break, please. We need to be back in our seats ready for 7 p.m, so we will restart the meeting at around 5 to 7. Thank you. Can I remind members, please, if you can make sure that your electronic devices are switched to silent, please, before we start. Thank you. Right, as it's nearly 7 o'clock, we will move straight to item 10, the key discussion item, which will take place on housing provision in Kirklees. And I believe Councillor Crook, you are giving the 10-minute presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So, me again to talk about housing some more. Apologies for that. I'm not sure what I've done to deserve it, but I am genuinely delighted to get into some more detail on our housing in Kirklees and to hopefully precipitate a genuinely collaborative discussion about ways we continue to improve the situation for our residents and our tenants. Can I have the next slide, please? So before I get into new information, I'd just like to very quickly recap on some of the background here. This just illustrates clearly that councils have not been able to build for a prolonged period of time, and that's a key contributory factor. Clearly multiple other drivers of the housing crisis: affordability, motivation to build specific types of housing that we need but might be less profitable by the private sector, and so on. It is clear, though, that if we don't build enough houses, not enough houses for people to live in is the result. And that the most acute need is for social housing, reflecting that counterpart of unaffordability of housing currently. We have 1.33 million households nationally, so literally millions of people, because that's households, not people, on local government housing registers, and that's from March 2024. It's probably got worse since then. That's people who want to make a positive choice to live in council homes, and over 130,000 households currently nationally homeless, including 170,000 children. Both of these are the highest numbers ever on record. In Kirklees, we have nearly 20,000 households on our waiting list, although, as I said last council, we are doing much better against the acute end of this number, homelessness, with our numbers still reducing against the national trend, and that's thanks to the exceptional officers that we have here in Kirklees. Nonetheless, this pressure cost the council £7.6 million last year. Next slide, please. So, having illustrated the problem and depressed everyone, I thought it'd be useful to cheer everyone up with and talk a little bit about some of the positive ways forward. So I'll talk a little bit about the Renters' Rights Act, which became law towards the back end of October, and is fantastic news for tenants and for councils with people who they need to find homes for, and also for legitimate landlords, in my view, because of the protections it confers. I'll talk a little bit about building homes, and specifically building the homes, the type of homes we need here in Kirklees, and I'll talk a little bit about how fantastic it is that this government has recognised the acute housing crisis and that the root cause is a failure to build, and committed £39 billion of additional investment to building social and truly affordable housing, with 60% of that sum committed to the social housing that we so desperately need. Next slide, please. So the Renters' Rights Act, which became law on the 27th of October, it reflects a situation where the acute shortage of the right sort of housing has led to an unhealthy asymmetry in the sector, with landlords able to dictate to tenants and effectively remove or degrade their rights. And to clarify, I'm not being ideological here, because faced with the crisis that we are, good quality private rented housing is clearly a key part of the solution. Which is also not to say that I'm not politically committed to people being able to choose positively to live in collectively owned or council municipal housing, because I am. So anyway, the Renters' Rights Act is a long overdue response to private rented sector failure, and a really positive piece of legislation which will protect both tenants and landlords. From our perspective, as a council with statutory duties for homelessness and a duty to support our residents to have secure homes, some key points from the Act that will help us are abolition of the Section 21 or no-fault evictions, giving tenants greater housing security, an end to discrimination against families with children or those on benefits, an end to bidding wars, which is a little bit London-centric. We have fewer bidding wars in this part of the country, and an end to huge bonds and rents in advance, again making homes more accessible to our residents. and limitations on rent increases so that tenants are secure for longer tenancies in their homes. And because we care deeply about living conditions, I'm also delighted that Awab's law and the Decent Home Standards will also apply to private rented homes in due course. But there are also stronger protections for landlords so that they can repossess their houses quickly when they need to, and to help ensure standards are maintained so they don't fall foul of legislation in that respect. There are further implications for councils too, with greater responsibility for enforcing compliance and also greater opportunity to use the private rented sector successfully to help fulfil our obligations for housing. Next slide, please. So this is just a little view of some of the building underway in Kirklees. There's significant pipeline of work being developed in partnership with Homes England, with West Yorkshire Combined Authority and with others, and we are in an advantageous position with our established strategic place partnership arrangement. Two key examples of sites in progress at the moment are Dewsbury Riverside, which will ultimately deliver around 4,000 homes, and Bradley Park, which will deliver up to 2,000 homes and is closely related to our Cooper Bridge scheme, which has been developed from our major projects team here at Kirklees. Most sites in development are either private sector or partnership, but we recently attended the official opening of the council-owned Ashview Extra Care Scheme, with yourself, Madam Mayor, in Cowcliff, which is a fantastic new facility and is already serving its new tenants really well. Next slide, please. So the £39 billion government funding will deliver approximately 300,000 additional homes, with, as I said, 60% providing the good quality and truly affordable socially rented homes that our residents and tenants need so desperately. The Council will develop further expertise and internal capacity and sites to make sure that we are recipients of as much of the £39 billion here in Kirklees as we can be, and any other funding available, aligning our funding asks to governmental and ministerial priorities will be key there. We are already working to achieve this, with bids submitted to MHCLG to develop that in-house capacity so that we can expand our council house building programme. And other measures from this government, most notably removal of right to buy from new homes, newly built social homes, and rent certainty within the sector will also allow us to invest with more confidence. We also need to expand and develop more sites with partners, other housing associations and social landlords, registered providers. We need to do all of this as fast as possible to provide the good quality and truly affordable homes that our residents and tenants need so desperately. On this area of government policy in particular, I mean many, but on this in particular, I'm definitely in full agreement. So I would say come and build social housing in Kirklees, and I can just about bring myself to say this phrase, but build, baby, build. Slide 7, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm very happy to take any comments that are raised in the discussion here, and hopefully we can genuinely work together across the chamber to find ways to bring landlords and tenants together to utilise the housing we already have in Kirklees, and also work together to maximise our programme of new house building in Kirklees, in particular the social and truly affordable homes we need, and collaborate to bring forward and support appropriate sites to maximise investment in housing in our borough and best serve our residents and our places as ward councillors. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there is a maximum of 60 minutes for this item, including the almost 8 minutes that Councillor Crook took. This is in the form of a debate. This is not a question and answer session to the portfolio holder. It's a debate rather than that. So I would open the list up for those that wish to speak. Councillor Cooper.
So thank you, Councillor Crook, for your presentation. Over 1 million homes have been granted planning permission since 2015. So when government talks about blockers to development, it isn't councils, it isn't communities, it is developers themselves. So weakening local government planning powers is not the approach we need to take if we are really trying to build new housing. It is penalising developers who are engaged in land banking and sitting on planning approvals with no intention to develop. Government is going to fail its 1.5 million homes built target by the end of this Parliament, according to the Office of Budget Responsibility. So why set yourself an unrealistic target, which was always going to be impossible to achieve? 2/3 of that target could be met by developers simply building what they said they would. But what we really need is realistic social housing targets, because our housing strategy should be about houses we need and not just be about an engine for economic growth. I'm sure you believe in inclusive growth, so why is the 1.5 million build target not inclusive with a social housing target? We've lost nearly 2 million homes to Right to Buy, another legacy from the Thatcher government carried on by successive Labour and Conservative administrations. So though it's good to have aspiration, not a target, by government to build 300,000 social homes in this Parliament, it is very disappointing that they still haven't fully abolished the Right to Buy. There is a Right to Buy hole in our social housing bucket. And as fast as we build them, we still lose thousands of homes every year, even taking into account the reduction in discounts. So Kirklees Council is making money available for social housing. National government is making money available. Maybe Kirklees will actually apply for the funding this time and not miss out as it did over the Warm Homes local funding. So we need to build in the right places so our communities will be enhanced by new housing, not have our local environments diminished with greenfields built on. So before Labour start accusing me or anyone else of being NIMBYs, I'd like to see some evidence of serious efforts to build on brownfield sites, previously developed land. In our ward, Newsham Mills is a classic example of a brownfield site that we want to see development on. Fortunately, for some time now, the West Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority has had a brownfield development fund. And when I looked on the West Yorkshire Combined Authority website last week, every other council in West Yorkshire had schemes that had taken advantage of this funding, but not Kirklees. The page on their website with this information has now mysteriously been taken down. Was it correct? Has Kirklees yet again failed to apply for funding?
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Moses, for the Councillor Crook for the presentation. One of the things I've noticed is when we're building social homes, we must want sort of green spaces, right? We want to make them look nice and good for the environment, which is, you know, you don't want concrete jungles everywhere, and I welcome that. But over the last 3 weeks, we've sent out 19,000 emails to people living in social housing around Kirklees, asking them to pay for the upkeep of those said grounds. There's a bit of me, if I was in that hard up and I had to live in social housing, I can't afford to pay for extra things. You know, do I get the option when you're building social housing to not have the green spaces so that I'm better off? Or is there a better way of doing it? Maybe suggesting to the residents of these houses, could you maintain it yourself? Certainly in the elderly community, they would welcome that. And it's certain, I've had numerous emails suggesting that they actually do that already and they haven't seen anyone maintaining their land at all over the last 3-4 years. And yet, they're now going to get charged for something they've been paying themselves to do. So whilst I welcome social homes, let's make sure that we build the right ones that aren't going to, in later years, cause an extra financial burden on the people you're building them for.
Councillor Marchington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Moses, for your presentation. I think the one thing you always agree with is we need a cross-party approach, a joint approach to how we tackle housing going forward. We've always talked about it in the past, but it seems to be we end up being political about it. We know we need more homes. It's how you build them and where you build them becomes a bit of a stickler. Spoil it a bit by sort of praising too much the current government. Every past government, even the ones who've messed us about with Right to Buy, Andrew, have tried to build more homes, and to varying degrees of success. It's the complication of doing that. £39 billion sounds like a lot of money. I couldn't find out clearly whether that's England and Wales or just England or what happens with the developers. But even for Kirklees, if it's some pro rata, it's a lot of money over 10 years. Or if you do one, it's about £24 million a year over 10 years. But that delivers very small numbers of housing, even if you discount the housing loss. So I reckon about 2,000 social homes in Kirklees, when we've got a waiting list of 20,000. So it is a lot of money. It's a drop in the ocean. I think Mayor Brabbins said that when she was talking about employment. It's a drop in the ocean. We need to be clear about it. We need to unpick big numbers. Also support what Councillor McGrath has said about it. I know we've got a fabric first approach to housing, and we want to build good quality houses, the right sort of density, but the environment is important, and also the infrastructure. And if we're putting houses in places without connectivity to the local transport network, are we going to build all our houses within walking distance of the mass transit system that's going to dip into Dewsbury, or to local schools or to health stuff? And that again costs a lot of money. So it's not just about the houses, it's about the whole infrastructure around it, and particularly if we're talking about any type of housing, whether you're living in social housing, or if you're an owner-occupier, or it's private rented, you need a doctor, you might need a school, if you're older you might need adult social care. All that needs to be taken into account, and the appropriate amount of resource needs to come in. So that does worry me a bit. Just a nitpicky thing as well, can we talk about homes, not just about houses? Isn't about houses. And what I was reflecting walking down today is that the need for housing or places to live has changed over the years. So when I used to come into Huddersfield when I was younger, there was the YMCA on Lord Street at the bottom of the North, providing bed sits for young people when they're moving out of the homes, leaving home, families and stuff like that. That's now a car park. So at some stage there wasn't a need for that. So it's not just about building little boxes, wherever they are. It's about the culture of where you live. If you're living at home, as some of us, we might have older children who are going to be living with us for a lot longer. So ways of supporting people to do that. We've got the right sorts of accommodation for people when they want to move on, when they're starting work or want to live on their own, or with families and stuff like that. The nature, the social aspect around all sorts of housing has changed over the last decade, and previously it's different, and we need a holistic approach to that. So do welcome any building of the right type of housing, right places, wherever that is in Kirklees, across the country. But there's a whole lot of other stuff we need to get right if it's going to work for our residents, our community, and the whole of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In Dewsbury East, we have residents who have lived for years with damp and disrepair. And I know the council, because I'm passionate about housing, does its best. But I want to remind the Chamber that under our law, council is now legally responsible for ensuring that those hazards are resolved, not delayed, not ignored. Just last month, and I think it's poignant here, I'm not going to bring a name in it because I know you say you can't personalise it, an elderly couple in their 80s asked for me to come and they complained about damp. They contacted the council, who did come out, and they sprayed the mattress with a chemical. Instead of looking for solutions of why the flat was damp, they sprayed the mattress. Now, that's not housing support, that's negligence. So I'm just wondering how many, because as an authority, we are liable if residents suffer illness, and worse, because repairs that aren't done in time. And if we fail to act now, we'll face both moral and legal consequences. So I welcome Councillor Crook's talk on the housing paper and decent homes. But I just want to mention out there, it's about the connectivity of all these services out there that work out there. And there's an organisation, voluntary group called Dewsbury Cares. And it's a non-judgmental service where they support people that are homeless, rough sleepers, and the system's broken because when they present to housing, these people are in crisis and they're finding that they're excluded because somebody says they smell of alcohol. They smell of alcohol because they are numbing the pain, the stress and anxiety of how they're living. So communication is a problem, and it is people in crisis, and it's up to us to ensure that everything's joined up. So across Kirklees, the other point I want to make, we have private flats that are being left empty. There's extortionate service charges, which I did bring up at planning, that this is part of the problem. So you've got hundreds of pounds being spent on management. Blocks that could be providing good homes, and really good homes, are now standing half empty or full blocks empty. Have a look on Bradford Road, you'll see them across Kirklees. And there's not a lack of demand, it's this unfair cost that we're allowing with poor oversight. It's not profit before people, it should always be people first. So thank you, Councillor Crook, for what you said. You might not like what I said to you, but Dewsbury East deserve better. They don't want sticking plasters, they want solutions, not empty reassurances that we keep seeing. Thank you.
Councillor Darwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I rise to address a matter which reaches far beyond the issues of housing alone. It concerns the governance of our planning system and the way its administration is affecting the residents of Dewsbury South. Across my ward, residents are paying substantial sums, hundreds, and in some instances thousands of pounds to submit planning applications in good faith. They comply scrupulously with every regulation, furnish every required document, and fulfill every obligation expected of them. Yet despite their diligence, their applications seldom, if ever, reach the planning committee. They are halted long before elected members are afforded the opportunity to scrutinise them. Madam Mayor, my constituents feel that this occurs because the chair of the planning committee is exercising discretion which applications proceed. Hang on,
can you just? We just.
Can I just finish, please?
Make sure that this is on housing and not on a committee.
What okay. I'd like,
Councillor Darwin.
It is on housing, because the constituents that I'm talking about, they don't want to rely on any benefits or council housing. They already have a property which they try to extend to accommodate their children. So for me, I think it's absolutely paramount that I finish off what my constituents are saying. The consequences is a growing erosion of public trust. Residents observe large developers navigating the process with apparent ease, whilst ordinary families seeking merely to extend a modest home or provide for their children find themselves confronted by imperturbable barriers and inexplicable delays. Such inequality not only feels unjust, it undermines confidence in this council and the integrity of its procedures. What we must restore is a planning system that is open, transparent and accountable. A system in which every valid application receives due consideration and every councillor may advocate freely on behalf of their constituents without obstruction or prejudice. Madam Mayor, I do not ask for privileges or preferences, only for principle. Let the planning process operate as it was designed to do. Let decisions be taken in the light of day, not behind closed doors, so that our residents may once again have faith that fairness guides our deliberations. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate it.
Councillor Munro.
Just writing it. Madam Mayor, thank you. So I'd just like to really make a few points. So just to, as a result of the development, several in our area under the previously adopted local plan, sites feeding into Penistone Road corridor have now been built. This has led to a large increase in traffic, as many of the developments are not close to amenities and jobs. So my question is, yes, we may need a lot of these houses, but what is the council actually doing about the infrastructure? Because that is the most important, one of the most important facts. And I'd also like to raise an issue as well. In relation to the number of houses. I understand, I think the target is 2043 currently with the new standard per year. But I want to know if you could tell me as well if that has actually, if that's realistic. Are we going? Is that the number of houses we're aiming to actually build each year? And you know, and where are all those houses actually going to go? I know that we never reach the targets set each year under the previous local plan. So I just wonder how realistic that target figure is. Thank you.
Councillor David Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I greatly value these discussions that we have at Council, because it gives us opportunity to find common ground where we can. It gives all members a chance to feed into policy, but it also allows us to express our disagreements, so these can be aired as well. I'm going to start off with a couple of disagreements with the administration, and then I would like to end in a more cooperative fashion with some things with which I hope they will consider to be good ideas. The first is the government's new wheeze, which is grey belt. Now, mark my words, everybody in this chamber, grey belt is going to come back and bite us all on the bum. This is a dreadful idea. I have heard just in the last couple of days from a member at Leeds. Leeds members are now being advised by officers in Leeds that 90% of their green belt may be classified as grey belt. 90%. So the Labour government's ambition here is basically to say to local residents, we don't really care what you think, because we're going to snaffle that green belt one way or another, and we're going to build a load of houses on it. And this green belt has protected our villages and towns for decades now. Had it not been there, we would have had the urban sprawl. Those of us in the north would be living in Greater Dewsbury, and those in the south would be living in Greater Huddersfield. And had it not been there as well, we wouldn't have had the green lungs that we do, which are very much appreciated by people around the borough for recreation. So we have to watch that. We really have to watch it, and we have to be tough on what we decide as a council is going to be that definition of grey belt. The second disagreement I have is to do with council housing. I have no particular problem with the provision of council housing, and I never have. In fact, over the years, I've proposed several sites in my own ward for further council housing or social housing where I think it would be beneficial to those communities. Absolutely no problem. Where I do take issue with the comments of the Cabinet member is the fact that he seems to think that we should be providing council housing for anybody that doesn't necessarily need it, but wants it. And there is a difference, because I object, as a taxpayer, to paying and subsidising houses to be built for people who could afford to buy their own house. And I think we should be enabling people by imaginative means, wherever we can, for people to buy their own houses, to set them on that sound financial footing for the rest of their lives, so that when they retire, they've got that asset behind them, rather than having no asset. So there are two things there with which I disagree. If you take them both together, this demonic grey belt that the government have come up with, and this £39 billion bung to local councils to build council houses wherever they can, we get what it says on Councillor Crook's hat: build, baby, build. Damn the consequences. Right, I'm going to leave that there because I want to come up with some constructive issues as well. And this is, we need to have the opportunity to feed into the local plan. The local plan is in formation. It's not going to appear anytime soon, but it's going through. And so far, I don't think we've been asked for any ideas from councillors as to what ought to be in there. So I'm going to throw a few out now. First of all, to echo Councillor Cooper's sentiments, and I agreed with a lot of what you said, Councillor Cooper, we need a watertight commitment in there as far as we can to build on the brownfield first. Before greenfield, before any grey belt, before green belt. And we failed to do that, and we really need to look at that again. The second one is to look properly and seriously at age-designated housing for older people, and what that looks like and where it should be put for the benefit of those people. And also that has the benefit to enable downsizing. So these older people are then relinquishing bigger houses we can put families into. And the third thing would be for the council to release its own land, where it's going to release it, in smaller packets, so that local builders have a chance to build nice houses in the vicinity, rather than the big boys always having first chance because it's a site which would take 250 houses. Sell it 10 at a time, so the local boys can have a go. They're providing jobs for local people. And a lot of that money comes back into the local economy. So there would be three things which I would throw out to say, can someone please look at these? And I'm sure there'll be others tonight. I'm sure my 5 minutes are up, aren't they, Madam Mayor? Yes, thank you very much.
Councillor Turner.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Just want to pick up one or 2 points, and this is where the fallibility, the unfortunate fact that we record this is, because this is now going to be prosperity. I agree with Councillor Cooper. I absolutely do agree. The fact that people apply for planning permission and then don't build is a national scandal. And I've had numerous conversations with our planners, with representatives of government, WICA, all sorts of people, and we haven't got a solution. How do you make someone do something if they don't want to spend their own money? It's a real problem. I wish somebody could, if you've got a really positive idea, let me know. I mean, I have some ideas around perhaps introducing some form of council tax if they don't build. But it is, well, we'll see. But it's really challenging to say to someone, you must use your money to build those houses. It is an absolute national scandal, I agree. It is. And we should use more brownfield. Problem with brownfield is usually it is very expensive, and again, developers will always try and find the book what they want, the bottom line. So it's challenging to get them to get involved and look at that. Councillor Hall referred to the local plan. That's really important that everybody gets involved in the local plan, because he's right about the grey belt. I don't understand the grey belt, and I've had numerous conversations about it. It is going to be challenging for everybody. But get involved when we go out to consultation with the local plan. Going to small packets, we actually work with lots of small builders to do the small sites. Unfortunately, quite often, they don't prove viable because they are small packets of land. They can be usually in challenging places. That's why we still got them, because they've never been able to develop that. We do try as best. We've got a small cluster project ongoing at the moment where we have some which are going through planning permission, which will deliver us some homes. But they are usually really challenging. We do our best to work with registered providers and local builders to develop those, but they can be challenging, believe you me. That's what I want to say on that little bit. One thing I'm going to say, that I'm really, really disappointed that a member in here attacked our planning department this evening and accused them of bias. Our planning department is not biased. It abides by the planning legislation. It treats every single application as any other application. They are not biased. They are not looking for ways around to get around certain areas. They are highly professional. They're working really hard at the moment. And I think that attack on the planning department He's uncalled, he's unjustified, and he should apologise.
Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we got a flavour from Councillor Crook's presentation, thank you for that, by the way, just about what a huge subject this is. It's sprawling, it's probably, you know, we've got months and months and months of legislation that have led to this, months and months of debate that have led to all the factors in here. So for us to do it justice in this chamber tonight is quite a tall order. I would have liked to have seen it split up a little bit maybe, and I still would like to see a session like this on the local plan individually. So that said, we've covered many topics, and I'd begin with welcoming the new legislation on Section 21. The Liberal Democrats have advocated that for a long time. It was in our manifesto in 24, so delighted to see that come forward. Hopefully it sees the end of the unregulated greed on show over the last few years. I've witnessed that vicariously through my son who rents in London, and the word he has it for it every time it comes up is savage, and I think that's a pretty accurate word. I think today though, I'd like to concentrate on the state of play in Kirklees. We've heard about mould and damp, and I think I'd put in there as well the fire doors, strictly because they are legislation that have precipitated action from this council. And I think that's significant that we've had to be in a position where we've had primary legislation so that we can justify doing this work. The fire door issue, as far as I know, could have been okay. Each of those fire doors could have been okay, but we didn't have the proper audit trail. And I hope that has been resolved, and that we're being really, really rigorous on that kind of paperwork, because of course, Councillor Hall said things coming, biting you on the bum. That is one of the things that will come and do that. The damp and mould issue has been going on for issues. Our law is a vindication for all those people who complained about damp and mould over the years, only to be blamed for leaving not windows open, or for boiling a kettle too much, or for going to too many showers. And I think we've all heard excuses like that, we've all heard reasons like that when we've gone to council, and it's good now that all of that, we've stuck a pin in that, and that's disappeared. I would like to know at some point about how we've gone about changing the culture of our reporting and our responding to make sure that that doesn't repeat itself, that we don't slide back into that. I was contacted by a young woman last week on the verge of tears because she was in one of our properties, had multiple health conditions, and was living in a property with cabin storage heaters. The heaters are very expensive to run and were producing little to no heat. Her medical equipment suffers with condensation, and she was constantly wiping it down for fear of infection through her cannula. Her next door neighbour had standard heating. One of her frustrations was that when she reported it, it was assessed, but yet not progressed to be replaced. It was deemed as adequate. And I think that's something that we really need to address, is what is adequate, what is not adequate, what allowances do we make for our residents, for the people who use our homes. We had if Councillor Crook remembers, we had a similar infestation issue that had a really happy ending for the resident. That was a really good result. It did take a long time though, so we're not there yet on some of our maintenance issues and some of our replacement issues. I could see Councillor Crook rolling his eyes there. I know it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers, but equally, we need to concentrate on those issues because those are the quality of people's lives. And I think we all like to see how we address the housing time bond in the local plan, or in any other way indeed. Meanwhile, we're constantly getting complaints of antisocial behaviour as younger people, some with well-known issues, are placed in tenancies where the majority of tenants are elderly. It's just not working. As Councillor Hall said, we need a plan for that. I know we hardly ever, and I'm going to say this in mitigation, I know we hardly ever get updates where a tenant is happy with the work that they've done or has received improvements and they want to tell us all about it. But the angry tenants, the frustrated tenants, those ones in tears, they haven't gone away. They're still there. So we need to think, why is that happening? I was walking around with some leaflets in my hand recently and was appalled by the difference in cleanliness at some of the communal areas in our local flats. The opt-in cleaning service is great where it happens, but where people haven't opted in, it's dire. It really is. So whilst I appreciate your presentation, Councillor Crook, it was all very good, but perhaps we need to start taking more pride in the homes that we provide. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Oh, you're up. Okay. You're just writing it, Madam Mayor.
Just looking at ChatGPT, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a list of things that I want to go through just that concern me, reference to building. Because what are we building on? Not the land itself, but the infrastructure, the management, and the ongoing management of the stock that we have and may have in the future. And it worries me because if we just look at last year and some of the reports that were done on Kirklees housing, one of the statements in the paper was called indecent, reference to the conditions for the tenants in the houses. There's been many reports and many failings as far as the housing stock and the management of them are concerned. And just going back to building what we've done so far, I became a councillor in 2018, and on our ward we've had 3 new houses being built since 2018 as far as our council housing being built. Then there's other things that we look at management, so we're now asking tenants to pay for their grass being cut. So additional services are now being what was services provided are now being asked to be paid for. Damp with little solutions, so we're moving people out into other properties. They've got to go under their own cost. We repair the houses that go back, but unfortunately because they're over-insulated, under-ventilated, then the properties become damp again because the same problems occur time and time again. We have inadequate heating where we've got these climate projects referenced to heat pumps that are totally inefficient for the whole older houses, but we continue with them anyway. And all you've got to do is ask the guys and the ladies that are fitting these systems, that maintain these systems, and they'll tell you that they're inadequate. But we carry on anyway as if we know better. And then there's the other reasons why we should be concerned about building any more housing, which is, I was looking at some of the old housing plans for budgets and literature online today before the meeting, 2020, 2021, then there was one that was from 2022 to 25. All blustering how wonderful we are and what we're going to do, and pretty little pictures of flowers in gardens and people smiling on the doorstep and the bin van coming on time and emptying the bins and etc. But what we know as councillors in real time, that there is massive failings in the management of the housing stock, massive failings. And if we continue just blindly building more houses with the same management structure as we've got at this moment in time, it's going to fall apart even more than it is at this moment. So I'd like to see more to do with the improvement of management, improvement of tenant facilities within the properties before we start building any more properties. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Anwar. Oh, sorry, did you have a point of order or a point of explanation?
CR 18 and 19, personal explanation. I'm learning on the job. For clarity, my comments were about process and governance. I did not point a finger on a personal level. No, I did not. No,
Just
I never.
let the
no,
member get a point
no,
of
I
personal
didn't.
explanation out, please.
So hang on. I need to finish. I'm sure I do understand the English language, even though I may be from an Asian background. I did not. That's the truth. What I said was merely how my constituents feel. They elected me. They elected me for them. So, Mr. Turner, I would like you to apologise to me.
Thank you, Councillor Darwin. Thank you. Thank you.
I may be independent, but he's not. I'm a match for him, I'll tell you.
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. There was only going to be one thing, but Councillor Hall has inspired me to make another comment. I'm fascinated by his view that there are this vast army of people who want council houses rather than need them, and I can only think he has a different caseload than I do. How many people come to us and say, my husband's really ill, we're disabled, we're overcrowded, you know, we're on low pay, we're on benefits. Can you help me in some way get up the ladder towards a council house, which we can't. But there are tons and tons of those. So I think there is no doubt that there is a vast need in Kirklees for social housing. Let's not pretend it's people just wanting it.
Councillor Kendrick. Is it a point of order or a point of personal explanation?
Personal explanation.
Come on then, let's hear your excuses.
Yes, it is. I was responding to Councillor Crook's comments that council housing should be the housing of choice. That's what he was saying. So he obviously believes himself that there are people who would like to live in a council house but who don't need to.
Thank you. Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The point I was going to start out was about, and you can all groan, because how many times do I bang on in this chamber about care leavers? You know, you can do a communal groan if you like. They do have priority when they're leaving care, but often under pressure of choosing a home, they tend to choose a home that is in an area completely unknown to them, completely alien, isolates them. Here are young people for the first time running their home and trying to balance a budget and cope. And therefore, I'm exceedingly grateful that my banging on about corporate parenting is a message certainly heard by the Executive Director and by Councillor Crook, because they've built some very specific homes for care leavers. Not many, but I am immensely grateful for that together, so it starts to build a little bit of a community. And I am incredibly grateful, but the message is I want more. Thank you.
Councillor Anwar, my apologies, you went off the list. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's okay, no problem. In Dewsbury West, residents hear big promises about housing delivery, but what they see are the same brownfield sites sitting untouched year after year. We're told tonight that Kirklees will work with developers and accelerate affordable housing, but there's still no timeline for when a single family in my ward will see that benefit. Dewsbury Riverside and Bradley Park are mentioned again, as if repeating the names builds the homes. Both are delayed, both largely market-led, and neither will solve the shortage in Dewsbury West. The private rented sector here is overstretched and under-regulated. Rents are soaring over £900 to £1,100 a month for a 3-bedroom property in Dewsbury West. That wouldn't pass the basic inspection. The Renters' Rights Act give council powers but no resources to use them. I've spoken to many families sleeping on sofas because the council list moves slower than their landlord's next rent rise. They're not asking for luxury, just security, decency and a fair chance. Regeneration must mean homes our residents can actually afford to live in, not another wave of speculative builds. Dewsbury West is tired of seeing investments stop at the ring road. If this council wants credibility, It must deliver bricks on the ground, not buzzwords off a paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Crook, for your introduction. There's a lot I really want to say. I'm not going to be able to do justice to in 5 minutes. So I'm going to rattle through a few things. Apologise if it's a bit at speed. The first thing I'd like to talk about is bungalows and level access properties. The strategic housing need points out that we have a shortage of these type of properties. And obviously, as people get older, they have a need for level access properties more. What I'd like to see in the local plan is a supplementary planning document that perhaps looks at a way in which we can protect bungalows, because I don't know what everybody else's experience is, but in my ward what tends to happen is quite often you get a bungalow comes up for sale, it's bought by a developer, it's on a reasonably large plot, next thing you know you've got a nice big 4 or 5 bedroom detached house and we're losing our bungalows. So it's something we could do in the local plan to protect those. That's my first one. The second one is BNG, so biodiversity net gain. It acts against us. Just very, very quickly, the lowest category of land, when you look at what the biodiversity net gain is and how much it's going to cost the developer, is actually farmland, because there's very little biodiversity on there, so it's easy for them to improve it. What has very high biodiversity net gain value is quite often the sites we want developing. We had one in Grangemore, been neglected for 40 years, loads of trees and shrubbery and stuff had grown up on it. As a consequence, we were building, I can't remember now, it's 11 or 12 houses on there. It worked out that because they were building the houses on there, they couldn't do the biodiversity net gain on there. Because it was deemed as the highest category, it ended up them having to pay a sum of money, commuted sum of money, which added 10 grand to each house that was going up for sale, because it was viewed as being very valuable in terms of the richness of biodiversity. But to local residents, it was a bloody eyesore. They were quite happy to see it developed. One thing we need to look at is our planning team. I support the comment Councillor Turner made earlier about we've got a really good planning team, but they are under the cosh. And we are getting to that stage of the year where we joyfully all talk about budgets. We need to come together and make sure we are providing funding in the budget to invest in our planning service. If you go and spend time with them, the processes and the systems they use are so blinking outdated. There's no effective workflow, there's no effective way of finding out how many cases they have, what stage they are all at. There's no AI used, there's no support provided, but it's our responsibility, the people in this chamber's responsibility, to get behind making sure in our budget we put money in to support that plan, because we've got the local plan coming down the line that's going to make it even more pressured for them. And what we don't want to do is people leaving because they can't see that they're getting the support from us. So very quickly on that one. Planning permission, and I can't remember who started it. I think it was Andrew, Councillor Cooper, and I agree with him about where planning permission has been given and nothing happens. We do need changes in legislation, but also what you have is this game that's played by developers where they put in the footings and then just leave it. So there needs to be something around not just the time period within which you're allowed to start a development, but there should be something about an end date. You've got to complete it by a certain date or come back and apply again. But that's one for the House of Commons rather than necessarily here, but we can lobby for that. Grey Belt, I agree with what's been said about Grey Belt. When I first heard the government was bringing in Grey Belt, the concept Grey Belt, I was fully supportive. What we're seeing now is basically, if it's a rural area, there is virtually no protection for green belt. It will all be classified as grey belt, and the developers can argue that point because the three remaining provisions are around preventing urban sprawl in towns and cities. Well, villages and rural areas aren't that. It's preventing the merging of towns. Again, villages aren't that. And the third one is protecting historic towns. And again, towns, not villages. And it's interesting if you see what happened with the housing numbers. So Angela Rayner, she reduced the number of the housing numbers in the urban areas in places like Manchester and London particularly, and increased them in the areas that had more rural areas. Very, very clear what they're trying to do. Push it into the rural areas and get rid of the green belt. And we will all face those challenges in the coming months. And then finally, one thing that, another thing that's going to add cost to housing is the government's proposed landfill tax changes, where they're significantly increasing the costs that are going to be put on developers of disposing of waste, which currently, quite often, they'll give to quarries, ex-quarries that need to backfill when they finish their quarrying, but they're going to increase the cost significantly on that. And there's been talk of that adding thousands of pounds to house prices, so it's another one we need to watch about. We talk about affordable housing. I've run out of time. Okay, I'll give up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed.
And thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Crook, for your presentation. Dewsbury South has seen promise after promise, new housing, regeneration, opportunities, yet the view from the ground remains the same. Empty sites, families overcrowded, people losing hope. We're told tonight the council is building capacity and expertise. Capacity doesn't house people, delivery does. Our residents are proud, hard-working, generous. Many have been on the waiting list for years, watching new developments elsewhere in Kirklees, while their own children move away because they can't find a home here. This administration finds millions for feasibility studies, but struggles to fix basic disrepair or bring forward stalled land it already owns. Madam Mayor, fairness must be measured in foundations, not phrases. When you walk the estates in Dewsbury South, Thornhill, Thornlees and Sowelltown, you see people doing their best in conditions that would shame the so-called modern authority. We're asking for a ward-by-ward delivery plan, starting with areas in greatest need. We want clear numbers, how many new council homes are planned, how many are affordable, and how many will be built in Dewsbury South. Until that transparency exists, trust will not. We will keep fighting for our residents because housing is not a luxury. It's the base on which every other policy stands. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we all see several problems with the housing provision, and one of them is that we're building the wrong type of housing very often. Many developers prefer executive mansions, 4 or 5 bed detached houses. And I'm wondering, is it not possible, as part of our local plan update perhaps, to introduce a supplementary planning document to address this issue of a lack of bungalows and smaller units that people can downsize into? There is a recognised need for starter homes, and I've said this before. We also need to push for finisher homes, 1 and 2 bed bungalows or level access for older people. And I say 2 bed because some people do need a living carer as they get older and infirm. So I think we need to bear that in mind. As mentioned, there's been a great problem with approved plans not being taken up. Personally, given the chance, if I ruled the world, I would address this by using, if you like, a notional council tax, where an approved scheme is not commenced in a timely framework. Then we should level a percentage of the council tax which would be due on the approved development. It's an incentive for developers to actually get on and build, rather than land bank and hope to come back with an application to extend the time limits. And of course, grey belt. It is indeed very dangerous, I sit on planning. We see what appear to me to be very speculative applications coming forward, where valuable greenbelt land is dismissed as grey-belt, for reasons that have been articulated by my colleague, Councillor Taylor, because the legislation talks about towns, not villages, very largely. Because there's a lack of a clear definition from government, we are having to firefight these speculative proposals. Meanwhile, as I think we all know, brownfield sites are left to fester. Here again, I would advocate creative use of council tax. A stick for approvals not taken up, balanced by carrots for developers willing to tackle brownfield. I'm sure we could find a scheme to give them a discount against council tax for taking up the very, very difficult sites that nobody will touch at the moment, but that we do need to see developed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt, we're nearly at the end. In fact, we've only got about a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think, firstly, I take issue with Councillor Crook's statement of build, baby, build. I think from what we heard from many residents, they would rather hear us say infrastructure, safety and trust. The issue Councillor Turner mentioned about bias. The planning process is biased in favour of the developer. The developer can have pre-planning discussions, quite extensive, with the council and its officers and services. The residents don't get that. So a lot of issues have often been resolved before the residents get to know. So we don't get that. Members will read in the written response to one of my questions. Officers in planning department are highly professional and aim to give the best possible service to applicants. That they may do. But my contention and the issue of bias is it should be to applicants and residents. Councillor Cooper talked about developers circumventing planning conditions and land banking. And we've seen that in Murfield, where a major development, which had a timescale on it, was conceded as starting because the applicant and the council had agreed that by putting a muck ramp in, it classed as starting the development. Others have mentioned putting footings in. Murfield didn't get that far. They shifted some muck and it was classified as starting. So there are certain inequalities that have been addressed, and I think for people to have confidence in our housing and planning system, we need to address those. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crook, do you want a minute or two to round up?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. There were just a couple of things I thought I'd quickly pick up on. I'll get as far as I get in the time that's available. Councillor Cooper, the Brownfield Housing Fund, we do have a scheme in Kirklees, but it is only one. The vast majority of those schemes have been in Bradford and Leeds. I was in Wicker last week where we discussed that, but there is £22 million additional been added to that fund, so hopefully there'll be some redress in the allocation there. In response to Tony to green spaces, absolutely we want green spaces. But I want to clarify that the additional charge that's being levied on tenants is for shared green spaces, not for their gardens, which were already under their control. And all of the maintenance of those spaces is already paid for by tenants. It's paid for whether they benefit from those green spaces or not. So this is about trying to make it a fairer cost on our tenants. 39 billion, the right to buy, yes, absolutely agree with you that it's not enough, but it is a very good start and we need to leverage that and get additional houses built. The right to buy being removed from new build is a significant step there and does allow us to invest in that. And on homes, I absolutely agree with you on that. And I did a quick search in the notes of my presentation. 59 mentions of the word homes. I think it is really key that people think of their homes, not as just houses. So that's an important bit. Cathy, Councillor Scott, I was a bit concerned about you talking about profit because our council housing is obviously funded through the ring-fenced HRA. There is not a penny of profit taken out of that system at all. It is just all of the money, every penny that is paid in rents and service charges is used in the HRA to service our council houses and more money when we get additional funding in. So I thought that was an important point to clarify. Councillor Munro talked about transport and infrastructure. Absolutely agree with you, but just quickly to mention that we have our first ever Kirklees transport strategy out, which makes travelling by public transport an alternative means the easy and obvious choice. It's not anti-car, but it will reduce some of the pressure on the roads, and obviously the Weaver network will also give us some benefit in that respect. And Councillor Hall, I absolutely understand what you're saying. You don't think that council housing should be subsidised for everyone. We're in a situation where people who are working in private rented are also receiving benefits because they can't afford to live in that context. So there's already a subsidy. I would say that that subsidy was better placed in a piece of infrastructure which is then passed on and stays in public ownership. And the other thing is that the HRA is self-funding. There isn't subsidy in the sense that I think I understood you to mean there. And actually, if you have a sustainable council housing service, you can have self-funding but municipal provision, so there's more economy of scale in terms of mending your roofs and things like that. And some people don't want to own a house and have that overhead in their lives, and I think they should be allowed to make that positive choice. Have I got any more time? I'm trying my best to read my own writing and answer as many people as possible. Okay, so there's two other things I think are really important here. One is pride in place and pride in your homes. I can't remember which councillor, it might have been John Lawson who brought that up. Absolutely agree with you. And I think that plays into the other part of, in my head, how that's linked to Awab's law and the culture where tenants were blamed for the house not being appropriate for their needs. It is the landlord's responsibility to make sure that the homes that they are renting to tenants are appropriate for the tenants' needs, even if there is overcrowding issues because we have a shortage of social housing. So that's a really clear principle that is totally embedded in the Homes and Neighbourhood Housing Service within Kirklees and hopefully across the country, and Awab's law is a reflection of that. I think that'll do. Any other questions? Very happy to answer them. Email me. Yeah.
Councillor Crook. All right then, so we will move back to item 9. Written questions to the Leader, Cabinet members, chairs of committees and nominated spokespersons. 30 minutes in total. Councillor Hall.
I propose that we suspend Procedure Rule 12, paragraph 4, so that we can get through as many questions as possible before 9 o'clock.
Before 9 o'clock. Is that seconded? Councillor Taylor. We will have a vote then on to extend the time for written questions to 9 p.m. We'll vote on the consoles. All those in favour. Oh, Councillor Cooper. All right, so... Well... Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cooper, this is not a debate, this is a vote. Okay, thank you, Councillor Cooper. Can we go to the vote, please? It is for Council to decide whether we extend the time for written questions.
I'll press green for you. We're all going to vote green.
Has everybody voted who wishes to vote? That is then carried, so we extend the time for written questions to 9 p.m. Thank you. Okay, so question 1. So a written schedule of submitted questions and responses has been circulated. So I will now invite members to ask any supplementary questions. So Councillor Habib Zaman, do you have a supplementary to question 1, please?
Thank you. The response sounds thorough, but we still see people leaving prison ended up on our streets or sofa surfing. This is not getting the basics right. If the pathway exists, why is it failing in practice? And when will this council be transparent about how many people it actually houses, not just how many assessments it carries out?
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman, for your question. I'm not quite sure I understood the last bit. I thought we were absolutely transparent about the number of people that we house in our council homes. We have a totally public information about that. On your question about those who are leaving prison, I absolutely agree with your concern there. This is a vulnerable group of people, and I think it is in the public interest that we support that group to ensure that they have sustainable housing, which is a critical part of rehabilitation when they get out of prison. My my feeling is that if we don't do that, the cost to society is significantly higher. We are obviously still constrained by the same regulations about where we accept a duty, but my sense is that we need to do that, and so I agree with you. So thanks for your question and for bringing that up.
Question 2, Councillor Habiban Zaman, do you have a supplementary to question 2?
Yes, I do. So thank you. We've spoken about fairness, but true fairness needs transparency. Council tenants are being billed while private owners on the same estate benefit for free. Isn't this just shifting the hidden costs onto those least able to pay? And doesn't it show that the council still hasn't got the basics right on how it funds and explains local services?
Councillor Crook.
Thank you very much for the question. So one of the things that is changing in provision of council-owned social housing is that we need to move towards cost recovery for additional services that are enjoyed by tenants. We're trying to do this in the most sensitive way possible by limiting the level of increase in cost so that no one will pay more than an extra £1 a week until we reach cost recovery. It's not actually within our gift to refuse to move towards cost recovery. That's part of the regulator of social housing's current understanding of how we need to manage social housing. In terms of fairness, the previous situation was that grounds maintenance would have been paid for out of the housing revenue account, which is funded just from social rents. So everyone, regardless of whether they had enjoyment of a piece of communal ground or not, was paying to maintain the communal grounds. So we're trying to move to a fairer system, and within that, because we have lost some property to leaseholders, it is absolutely right that the council tenants who still have enjoyment of that communal ground only pay the same percentage that they would pay were all of those homes still council owned. So if there were 10 homes enjoying a piece of communal ground and only 2 of them were council owned still, they would only pay a tenth each, they wouldn't pay half each. So we are trying to make that as fair as possible and looking at ways in the future that leasehold arrangements can also encompass that charge to make sure that privately owned properties, often rented out again, but privately owned properties are contributing correctly to that maintenance as well.
Question 3, Councillor Scott, do you have a supplementary to question 3?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The residents were told that Shore Start was returning when it was have a small development grant with no centre, no staff, no plan. If transparency really matters, will you now admit that this was never the return of the Shore Start and commit to getting those basics right by being honest with the families about what was actually on offer? And thank you. I know Councillor Kendrick's going to be answering that, and I do appreciate that. But it was actually Councillor Patterson that actually made the press statement.
Councillor Kendrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Scott. I am answering this because it sits in my neck of the woods, if you like. I have the press statement that came out which said, headed up, Sure Start style services, and the leader's quote was, Sure Start style. It wasn't saying Sure Start. There's an assumption that the service has been sitting still waiting for something wonderful to come along and happen. In actual fact, the service has been working incredibly hard and has developed Families Together hubs, a model that we have across the district. And the Best Start family hubs will build on that work already done. So, you know, just over 190,000 is very welcome to build on that, and we will take great advantage of it. And the Best Start really focuses on 0 to 5 years, children reaching a good level of development, giving them the best start in life, and I don't think anybody in this chamber will disagree that that is essential. But I'm really pleased and grateful for the Department for Education, who have also been looking at what comes next. And next is they've made a provisional figure for us in Kirklees of £3.6 million over 3 years, £1.2 million per year from 2026 onwards. So actually, I think that will help us build and develop this into an even greater structure for the benefit of families and young people in Kirklees.
Question 4. Councillor Scott, do you have a supplementary to question 4?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So in response, you said that the arcade is separate yet operates with public money and political links. That's exactly why residents keep asking for transparency. If this council is serious about getting the basics right, will you publish the governance arrangements and funding agreements in full so that people can see where decisions are really being made?
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councillor Scott. I believe all those things are readily available on the Dewsbury Arcade website. Certainly the list of members of the board are all there because I had a look this afternoon, so I'm sure it's all there. If there's something missing, if you let me know, I will pass that on for them. They can add it there, but as I said, it is a quite detailed website.
Question 5. Councillor Scott, supplementary.
Yes, thank you. And can I just say I appreciate Councillor Turner taking that on and actually getting them put on the website because they're not. So my next one is, you say that these issues shouldn't be politicised, but secrecy breeds politics. Councillors can't protect residents if information is drip-fed behind closed doors. If transparency is getting the basics right, our priorities, why are we not being provided with full briefings? As members, this is serious and it raises serious concerns. Instead of people guessing, let's be honest.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, for your question. Briefings are available for all members, as I said in the response, where appropriate. It isn't appropriate that all issues are shared with all members of the of this chamber, but certainly the important issues, such as, for instance, during COVID, last year when there were bin changes mooted, when there's issues about changes in licensing law or planning law, there are briefings for all members on those issues as appropriate. That might be a written response, written briefing, it might be web-based, it might be a press release. Officers also do visit all political groups, or certainly offer to visit all political groups on issues which are relevant to all members across Kirklees. As you well know, the group leaders are briefed every 2 weeks by the Chief Executive on important issues across the board. So I do think there is transparency there. We are as open as we should be, as we can be on all issues. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Pattison, for your response. I'm pleased to see you have managed to find the time to go and visit the farming community finally. You were only asked to do so virtually a year ago. But in a motion that I brought through this council, it also asked you to outline to the farming community what support the council was going to put in place to help them as a result of the challenges they're facing as a result of the family farm tax and other issues. I'd be grateful if you could just illuminate what that discussion was and what we are proposing to do. But also, in that motion, we were asked to look at our procurement to see if we could increase the amount of local food that we were sourcing to support our local farmers. And again, I've not yet seen anything come back on that. So if you could perhaps pick that up. I'm glad to see you recognise the farming community is an important part of our community, because that wasn't included. Oh, look, she's getting notes off the Deputy Leader. That wasn't included in the economic strategy, which I picked up at the time, And also, and apologies if I've got this wrong, but the picture of Kirklees last week had a whole range of people invited, but I'm not sure the farming community were included in that. Perhaps you'd like to comment on that as well.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Yeah, the range of issues that we discussed with representatives from the Farmers Union, one of whom, of course, is based in Honley. So, I mean, we did speak to the Lees West representative, but one of them was actually based in Honley as well. So we did get a very local flavour of what their issues may be. The issues that we specifically talked about were, dare I say it, planning issues, grant schemes, footpaths, biodiversity, rural businesses, their monthly bulletin, which they do put out to all farmers or their members, and we agreed, and they gave us the opportunity to use that monthly bulletin, or they would use it to communicate with farmers as well if there was something specific we did want to actually get to them. They did not mention inheritance tax. We did ask them what their challenges. We asked them to outline what their challenges and what support they needed. Inheritance tax was not one of those. I'm sorry if you haven't had a response, but I think I actually gave it at the time, potentially, that we do source as much food as possible locally. I know our catering services are very keen to make sure that we do that. And to be honest, that was one of the things that kept us going during COVID, was that we did have such good supply of food locally. We left the meeting very amicably and with agreement to keep a dialogue going. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 7. Councillor Taylor, do you have a supplementary to question 7, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure who's actually, I'm assuming it's, yeah, I assumed it was Councillor Cook. I raise this issue because I have 2 walls in my patch that have been reported for nearly a year, one of which is on a safe route to school, where no action has been taken. You've got it fenced off, but it is a wall where you can see that it's bulging and possibly further parts of it could collapse. So really, I'm raising it here because I've tried through council inquiries, and to be fair to them, they're doing what they can do, but perhaps getting a bit more visibility might actually get some action taken. So I'm hoping that you or Councillor Hawkins, when this gets passed to Councillor Hawkins, will be able to look at these 2 issues for me and see what we can do to make sure some action gets taken. Thank you.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Taylor. I do have some sympathy. There's a lot of retaining walls in my ward as well, and when they collapse, sometimes there's very complicated issues to deal with. Often the issues are around liability and ownership of the walls, and I understand that at least one of the walls you're referring to is of private liability and private ownership, and actually there's a dialogue with the council already, and the private owner has accepted liability, and we're working through that at the moment. But as I say, I don't know exactly because you haven't identified the walls, but I think the best thing to do is to email me or Councillor Hawkins with the details of those 2 walls in particular, and we can get some details. We may well be. I think the point stands that it's a very complicated system of liability often, and I think when the council's got over 400 kilometres of retaining wall, they have to be very careful about not setting precedents in repairing walls that we don't actually own the liability for. So also very carefully constrained by the highways liability, which is just the highways adjacent walls and any walls that are set back which are off the highways responsibility. So it gets very complicated very quickly, but we clearly would like to mend any walls as quickly as humanly possible when they are our liability. There's obviously also the added complication that sometimes walls fail because they've been struck by a vehicle, in which case there is a third party involved and the liability probably stands with the vehicle owner's insurer. Obviously, we can't mend a wall then, regardless of how severe it is, until we've gone through a process of allowing them the opportunity to accept liability and choose their own contractors and all the rest of it. And that's without starting on the civil engineering design work that has to be done and signed off if it's a retaining structure. So, very complicated situation. Send the details through and we'll try and support you with that.
Question 8. Councillor Taylor, supplementary for question 8.
I guess this one's going to be Councillor Crook as well. This talks about, so what we're talking about here is that outside most of our schools, you've got a school sign with flashing lights that's supposed to flash before school starts and when it closes. Every one I've looked at in my ward isn't working. I've reported them all. I've asked for a response. I've asked to know what's being done about it. Done it through council inquiries. No response. So there is an issue. It does say here it's complicated. But that's fine, but where's the communication to tell us? Because what am I supposed to say to the schools? You know, they're telling me, I'm reporting it, and then nothing happens with it. So I'd like to get a response on the ones that I have reported, if that could be organised, please.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you again, Councillor Taylor. As the written answer explained, sometimes there's complexity in the technology and the signs that needs to be resolved and takes longer. But in general, when a sign isn't working, if you've reported it to council inquiries and not had a response, then I think that's not the right procedure. You should get a response. So please could you send all of these requests through to Councillor Hawkins, and I'm sure he will get back to you very quickly.
Question 9. Councillor Armour, do you have a supplementary for question 9?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mayor. It's just a shame that the councillor isn't here to field it, isn't it? But I don't know who I'm going to be addressing. I would have thanked the councillor for his response, but I know that the central how many times part of my question is not addressed. I'm not told. And it also seems, he does seem to contradict himself, because it seems we do, but we do not. You make use of contractors. It says both in the answer. However, be that as it may, it's a particular case about a section of a grey bin round in Lepton area, which was operated by a contractor, whether we use them or not, and it had been missed, giving rise to complaints received by me. It's my understanding that in general the rounds are now monitored in real time using on or in vehicle technology operated by the crew. What steps are taken to ensure that contractors are familiar with the use of this technology and that they in fact use it effectively?
Councillor Crook.
So I'd just like to clarify the written answer, because I felt that it did try to answer your question. So when we have staff off sick, we will use agency staff. That's not a contractor, that's us employing agency staff. When a vehicle is broken, we might lease or rent a vehicle. That's again not a contractor doing the work, that's us using their vehicle. So it's still under the control of the Kirklees Waste Service. It's just that sometimes we use additional resource from external when we've got a particular gap in there. In terms of the response to missed bin collections, you're right, there has been a redesign and it's working much more effectively. The service tried to get back to missed bins because they're aware of the missed bin as soon as possible, but certainly within the same week, so that people's bins are not left for long periods of time. That's been working pretty effectively in my ward. There are some difficult areas and there's been some difficulty, as there always is when the rounds are rebalanced to take account of new building and so forth. But I can tell you that in the week commencing the 27th of October, our reporting system says that we had, varifocals, 99.89% of collections completed without complaint. So within that figure, I think we will be counting ones where we know we missed it and went back the same day, that sort of thing. But it is an improved service, it is a moving picture, and we are still aiming to do better.
Question 10. Councillor Armour, do you have a supplementary for question 10?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. When we brought these new vehicles in, as I'm sure we're all aware, and we had all sorts of problems with them. And when they were brought in my ward, I had a number of protracted incidents where it became clear that they were larger than the ones they replaced and weren't fit for the intended purpose. This caused a great deal of inconvenience and distress for some of my residents, as their houses were inaccessible for the vehicles. And to be fair, it created much extra work for cleansing staff in trying to address the ensuing problems. Can the Cabinet member, or whichever, please confirm that existing and ongoing policies will ensure that there is at all times an appropriate number of smaller vehicles deployed within my ward and indeed around the borough to ensure that all residents receive a comprehensive level of bin collection services?
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Armour. I do well remember your question about the new vehicles and them being somewhat larger. I won't reply in the way that it was replied to then, but to say that the latest Cabinet report is available, which summarises the latest phase of vehicle replacement and detail. That was from October the 24th. October 2024. In terms of the other detail in your question about repairs of vehicles, I believe there were some warranty issues and there was a bit of a hold-up with getting those repaired. That's resolved now, and the reliability of the vehicles is within our projected parameters now, so we project a certain amount of vehicle breakdown because they do take some hammer, and as they get older we project there'll be more breakdown, and so we try and align our procurement policy around when that ceases to be viable in terms of being economically viable for a particular vehicle type. We'd also try and reflect the needs of our borough with the types of vehicles and sizes of vehicles that are available. I share your concern about smaller vehicles. A lot of my ward was designed for horses and carts, as far as I can tell, and clearly the big wagons won't get up there. So just to reassure you that there is a well thought out procurement process that is ongoing with a replacement, notwithstanding that there was a period of time where there were some bin wagons that were slightly larger than had been anticipated.
Thank you. Question 11, Councillor Armour.
Yes, I think we're probably developing a theme here now. Again, I'm grateful for the response, which is about maintenance and repair of fleet vehicles. It does actually raise a number of potential further questions around fleet reliability and the efficacy of the repair and maintenance regime. But confining myself, as I must, to just one supplementary, pushing the bound really. So, could the council advise me during the last 12 months as to the average and maximum lengths of time that any given vehicle is out of service for repair?
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Armour. I mean, I think I outlined some of this in a previous answer. The breakdown, the frequency of breakdowns is within our expected and modelled predicted range. So I think the efficiency or efficacy of our repair and maintenance programme is borne out by those figures. I can't get you the specific data that you ask for, but I recommend that you email Councillor Hawkins as soon as possible, and he will get back to you with those specific details. Thank you.
Question 12, Councillor Munro, supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So my initial question concerned the order of agenda items for planning committees, and your response basically states that it's normal practice for planning applications with the anticipated greatest level of public interest first to be listed. However, I ask, are other criteria used too? For example, so where you have two planning applications on an agenda, both concern similar issues, where many parallels can be drawn, both have got objectors who are attending, why are they listed on the same agenda? Because a decision on the earlier item may have implications or influence the later agenda item, the decision that's reached by the committee. Could you tell me, can they be listed on different agendas? Thank you.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Councillor Munro, for the supplementary. It doesn't really make any difference where, if there's two applications, it doesn't matter where they go in the process, because one application cannot be taken into consideration when it's another application, so you can't take them into account with each other. So it doesn't matter. That's the legislation. Each application must be decided on its merits, and you can't say, oh, just because somebody's going to build something down the road next week, that's got to be taken into account. Not allowed. That's not how planning works. I think the description of how it works was accurate. The legal bits that are all done first, as in any committee in the council, and then they make the judgment with the chair and the planning officer that the ones that's going to attract the most interest to come first. And I think that's the right way to do it. But as I say, it doesn't make any difference, because you cannot take into account another application while you're discussing one application.
Question 13, Councillor Richard Smith, supplementary.
Thank you. So I think this is for Councillor Hawkins. I'm not sure whether the one-man cabinet member is going to take this one. So thank you for the response, which was comprehensive. There were a couple of points in there that I just wanted to further explore. So Councillor Hawkins mentioned that when an enforcement camera doesn't meet the criteria, the partnership considers if neighbourhood policing support would help, and also requests for locations to be considered can be made by the council's website. Now, I don't know whether this is always the case, but I have, in my experience, I've found this not to really be borne out in reality, because the stock response I've seen is that if the requirements for the camera, effectively, as has been discussed before, if there isn't a fatal collision and the required number of serious incidents, then the camera is basically refused on those grounds, in my experience. I'm just wondering, has the position changed, which would be welcome, or, you know, are we? I think what I'm getting at really is that we need to have a position where we don't have to wait for somebody to be killed or seriously injured multiple times before there is favourable view of a camera request, and I suspect that this answer suggests we can request one, or residents can request one, but in my experience, the usual response is that that's not been the case.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith, for your question. I mean, it's in several parts, this question, isn't it? So, in terms of where cameras get located, I believe that's down to the Safety Camera Partnership rather than Kirklees per se. And then but there are things that we can do to support placement of cameras. So in my ward, we've used our SID programme, for example, the placements of which are within the gift of the ward councillors to record the speeds, because the SIDs also record the average speed of motorists. When we've then been able to go back to the Safety Camera Partnership and say the average speed is breaking the speed limit here, because obviously you can't enforce through a SID, they've then said, fair enough, that's true, and brought the mobile cameras in to take to do an operation and try and catch some of the speeding motorists, which I think has been a very helpful partnership with the police. The other issue you raised there was waiting for people to be killed or seriously injured before allocation of resource. And I think there you're referring to our highway safety budgets. And the highway safety budgets are allocated partly through evidence of killed and serious injured accidents, that's correct. But it isn't a case of waiting till there's an injury and then responding. It's a case of using a finite resource in an evidence-based way, which is proven to reduce harm in Kirklees over time. And that is proven through, or borne out through, the evidence that we have as part of our annual reports through the highway safety team, which I actually covered because Councillor Hawkins was away last time they brought the report. So I was very pleased to see that straight line trajectory against our Vision Zero commitments, which is proving that the use of resource, and we use all of the resource, is reducing harm. So there's several different strands to the question there, and they're not all within the gift of the same service or the same budget, but they all work together to actively and in a proven way reduce harm. If you have any further detailed questions, please could you send an email through to Councillor Hawkins, and I'm sure he will get back to you. And just while I'm stood, Councillor Taylor, I've just seen an email pop up from you, and I want it to be absolutely clear these queries go to Councillor Hawkins and not to me.
Thank you. Question 14, Councillor Richard Smith, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. I wonder if Councillor Hawkins is watching this. We could save the bother of writing him an email. Again, I had a comprehensive answer to my question, so thank you. One point out of this, when I find the paragraph, it mentions diversions, and I can't find the paragraph, but the answer mentions diversions are being put in place for repairs, which I've found recently a couple of instances, and I don't necessarily think this is one that you can answer immediately, but I've seen a couple of instances in my ward where there were diversions put in place, and the signage was totally different to how I would normally expect it to be, in that there was no warning of a diversion until you actually got to the point where the water repair was taking place, and therefore motorists were driving right up to a road that was blocked and having to turn around. There was no warning of diversions being in place until that point. So I don't know whether something's changed, and I don't suspect this might be another one for Councillor Hawkins, I don't know whether something's changed, whether there's a different contractor in place, whether it's a contractor that's been used where in the past it used to be highways officers that did it. I don't know what it is, but I have noticed this more than once in the last few months. And I think it would be quite useful to address that, because we've had 7 or 8 cars waited to turn around in the dark on a road that's got no lighting on it, and, you know, obviously not great. Thank you.
Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for your question. So I did prepare the answers for these questions as well, and I just want to clarify that Councillor Hawkins has been getting married, and so we don't hold it against him, and congratulations to him. So he's always getting married, yeah. So, well, it was in Vietnam, so you know. So on the diversions, when I was preparing the answers to these questions, one of the points that I did want to make is that the diversion routes should be in consultation with ward councillors as well. Certainly in my own ward, I make a point of looking at TTRO notifications when they come in, checking the diversions, and on multiple occasions I've gone back to highways and said, I realise you're doing your best, this is a desk exercise, that piece of road you're using as a diversion is impossible to get through with a van or whatever, so it's really helpful to have that ward input. If the signage is not appropriate for the diversion as well, that's definitely something we need to report, although you did mention when a water repair is being done. Now, when a water repair is being done, it won't be the council doing that work. In fact, most of the time when there's work going on, it isn't the council doing the work, it's private subcontractors who are then using further private subcontractors for the traffic management. So it's a little bit convoluted, but we definitely do have the ability to ask highways colleagues to put pressure on those traffic management companies to improve the situation. In fact, I did it myself this morning in my own ward. The traffic management had been blown over, and that was a footpath diversion on the way to the high school, so children were having to clamber over the barriers or get into the road, completely unacceptable, so I reported that in and I got a response the same day from the highway service, so it is working pretty well. The other thing that I would say, and I probably mentioned this in the written response, but it's worth noting again, is that the council have applied to the Secretary of State to implement a lane rental scheme. That's really important because that will allow us to charge third-party utilities or anyone who digs a hole in the road by the day on our critical network, up to £2,500 a day, so not an insignificant amount of money. And in the other councils, there's only 3 or 4 that have been ahead of us in applying for this, but in those areas it has been proven to significantly reduce the length of delays. What a surprise. So I think we've got a bit of a positive story to tell and a bit of an improvement for our residents on the horizon. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 15. Councillor Bellamy, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Turner. You've outlined the process. But the issue being raised locally is that the process is not always functioning as intended. For example, a resident recently has submitted several enforcement reports but did not receive any acknowledgement or a reference number, and it actually was only when copying in a council officer that the matter was picked up. So could you clarify what checks are in place to ensure that no reports are overlooked or lost within the shared inbox, and whether the council will consider introducing automatic acknowledgements or another tracking safeguard to improve reliability for residents?
Councillor Turner.
Excuse me. Thank you for the supplementary. One of the problems is with the planning enforcement is it's a huge caseload, and one of the other problems is quite often you find somebody doesn't comply, so the officer will get 10, 15 emails from different people on the same thing, and it just clogs the inbox up. So we're aware that it's very challenging. We've currently got 1,000 live cases, which is an awful lot of cases underway. So we are doing as best with that. One of the things you've got to bear in mind, and I think it was alluded to earlier this evening, is we are now in the budget process, and we may well look at trying to put some extra money into the planning department to try and alleviate some of the pressures that's in there. As I said, early days, we're still going through the budget process, but if we could find some money, it would be really useful to try and alleviate some of the problem. And we now have a new head of planning, service director, and I've already had meetings with him. We're going to look at how we can better use modern technology, whether there's a better system of perhaps even AI, IT that we can use to get rid of some of the more mundane rule paperwork, etc., that goes on within the whole planning department. We need to start to look at that. So that's ongoing work. We've started that process. So hopefully we need to get these things turned around, because One thing we don't want is we've got to have this planning, we've got to have the planning department up and running when we get the local planning place, because we get an influx of applications. So we are on with it. We're trying to make it more efficient, working with our officers at the moment.
Thank you. Question 16. Councillor Bellamy, supplementary.
Yes, please. So thank you, Councillor Crook, for your response. However, in the case that I'm supporting, the overcrowding and the impact on the child's well-being are well evidenced, and the family has already provided medical and supporting information, yet their banding still hasn't changed. Could you clarify what routes exist for families in these circumstances to request a review or escalation of their banding, where there is clear evidence of harm or serious impact on their well-being? And importantly, is there scope within the current allocations policy for greater discretion in exceptional cases, particularly involving children?
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy, for your question. And overcrowding is a symptom of the under-provision of social housing that we see regularly. I am very happy if you want to send the casework to me to ask for the banding to be assessed, but unfortunately the acute shortage of housing means that even when there is severe overcrowding, that won't necessarily give a banding that will quickly lead to a housing allocation or a different housing allocation. I did just want to note just quickly that with the imposition of AWAB's law, quite correctly, that if there is damp, mould and condensation in one of our homes, then we are mandated to respond to that within certain timeframes. And so it is really important that all of us as members of the council take that responsibility seriously and make sure that we report that specific issue very directly and very quickly. That can either go via councillor inquiries direct to housing, or I'm very happy for people to pass it to me, but we do need to get that in place as quickly as possible. I am quite surprised to hear there's an enduring damp, mould and condensation issue though, because the fundamental and significant service redesign that's been done, in addition to the additional resource that's put in, has meant that our damp, mould and condensation response in Kirklees is frankly better than anywhere else in the country pretty much. We are at less than half of our business as usual numbers, despite this being peak season as we get into the colder weather. We've got extra capacity in place to make sure if there is an uptick in the number of cases that we will deal with them. So if you report that in, it will get dealt with well within the timeframes of AWAB's law, which we were compliant with ahead of imposition as well. I'd also add to that we are undertaking currently a full stock condition survey of all of our housing stock, with a 40% condition survey in year 1, 40% year 2, and then a rolling 20%. So we will never have less than 5-year data. We have additional capacity in our damp response part of the service to make sure that any unknown about damp issues that we uncover during that stock condition survey is also dealt with within the time frame. So I'm very confident that that part of the concern will be dealt with quickly. I am not confident that overcrowding in itself will be sufficient to give a high enough banding to get a quick housing. And no, we can't bypass that system, because it is really important that the officers use that framework to give fair allocation to everyone who is on our waiting list. And the waiting list is nearly as big as our entire stock, as you know, so very, very acute problem.
Question 17, Councillor Bellamy, supplement.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you again, Councillor Crook, for your response. As we've been made aware, tenants have now received letters confirming the charges, but a number have raised concerns that the amount they are being asked to pay does not reflect the level of communal space or the amount of maintenance actually required on their estates. Could you confirm how the council will ensure that the charge reflects the actual grounds maintenance needs and activity at each specific estate, and whether there will be a review mechanism for estates where tenants believe they are being charged disproportionately compared to the service they receive?
Councillor Crowe.
So thank you again, Councillor Bellamy, for your question. I mean, this is similar to a question that I answered earlier to Councillor Zaman, who isn't here. The answer is that yes, there was a robust review of the levels of ground maintenance that was required, that the cost of that ground maintenance, the number of properties that were implicated in that, and the division of cost between those properties. As I said before, the division is done on a per per house basis, not on per council-owned house basis, so that's again a fair distribution, and also the maximum increase is £1 a week when the real cost recovery against the £1.7 million that it costs the HRA to maintain these communal grounds is only the first step in moving towards cost recovery. In terms of a review, and also there was a consultation, obviously, with all of our tenants ahead of any imposition of charge, which is in line with the regulation. In terms of a review of any particular estate, if there seems to be a problem, I'm happy for that to be sent again to me, not to Councillor Hawkins, and I'll ask officers to give us some reassurance on that case-by-case basis.
Question 18, Councillor Hall, supplementary.
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. First of all, thank you for the response to Councillor Hawkins. I'm delighted to hear his happy news, and I'm sure we all send him our best wishes. The Uchi junction is a constant problem, and it explains there that Councillor Hawkins has given an undertaking that we will look at this. The problem we have is that it's a knock-on effect of the Fountain Junction. When the left turners out of Robert Town were banned there, everybody has to come down Lum Lane and turn right, and that peak hours is holding traffic up on Lum Lane until it backs right into the village. On occasions when the M62 is shut, the traffic jam goes right through the village, almost as far as Hartshead. So I wonder whether, I don't want to push generosity too far, but whether he would commit to looking at the Fountain Junction at the same time as looking at the Uchery Junction, so that we can have a fully rounded response to the problem. Thank you.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I'm not actually across all of the detail of these particular junctions, but I do note that I've committed Councillor Hawkins to reviewing the first junction, and I see no reason why I shouldn't commit him to looking at the second one at the same time. So let's go with that. In terms of overall traffic pressures on the junctions and roads across the borough, we do, of course, now have we have now adopted our first ever Kirklees transport strategy, which gives us a really clear indication of how we would like to move forward with reducing that sort of congestion issue that we do see, as well as improving safety, as I've already outlined in response to Councillor Smith's question as well. Making alternative forms of transport the easy and obvious choice will take cars off the road, and I hope to see improvements as we start to implement those strategies, as well as the wider regional public transport strategy that's encompassed by the Weaver network, which hopefully will definitely see patronage increase on public transport and therefore reduced pressure on the highways as well.
Question 19, Councillor Hall, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a little bit of background. Thank you, first of all, to Councillor Turner for his reply. It says that the land at Gummersall First School it was decided to release that on the open sale in June 2023. We're now nearly 2.5 years into that, and we're still waiting for it to be sold. But even more lamentable than that is the fact of the RM Grills site. This school was closed on the 31st of August 2008, 17 years ago. Since then, it has been deemed for council housing. It was then put into the disposals list. It was then taken off the disposals list to go for eco-housing. It was then put in the disposals list. It then was taken off the disposals list again because there were negotiations with Home England. It was then put in the disposals list, and now we are told it's been taken off the disposals list again to be looked at. Now, this lamentable game of cabinet hokey-cokey has been going on now for 17 years. And that really is atrocious, that we've had a council-owned site for 17 years, and every 2 years it goes back to Cabinet and they make another decision as what they're going to do with it. Will you please make a decision today, or a commitment, that this land will be sold in small parcels to local builders so that we can get some houses on it?
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hall. I can't do okey-cokey, I'm afraid. It has been a challenging one as that, and the point being is we have looked at yes, we've tried different things, and that was the whole point. We're trying to do something different. What could we do eco-homes? Could we do affordable homes? So it has been a delay. But it was trying to find the best use of that land. So it's been a real challenge. There's been some changes very recently. I think when Councillor Cook alluded them to earlier on. So we're now reassessing Aaron Grills for affordable housing, and we're hoping that new legislation will allow us to use it for affordable homes. We really want to use it for affordable homes, but it has proved challenging, and we've had to talk to various people and registered providers, but we couldn't get anywhere. But now these changes, we're optimistic that we'll now be able to do that, and that now is now being reassessed to hopefully get some affordable homes on there.
Question 20, Councillor Hall, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am grateful to Councillor Patterson for his response on this. And in fact, I did catch up with the Service Director responsible for this the other day while I was in, and I said I would meet her to discuss this issue about the cultural strategy more fully. But there's just one, there's always a concern I have is that whenever we consult on things like this, the voices that are most powerful are the people who are there, who are salaried in various fields of the arts to make money for the arts. And I would just like a simple commitment from the Leader of the Council that actually the people we will listen to most in devising a cultural strategy are those people who perform as volunteers.
Councillor Patterson.
Are you declaring an interest in that?
I could give you a very, very simple answer and just say yes, absolutely. And I won't elaborate much more on that other than to say one of the reasons that the steering group did take on the task of developing the strategy themselves was to make sure of that very issue, that grassroots community groups and volunteers were heard.
Question 21, supplementary, Councillor Sheard.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Leader will be aware, because I've mentioned it quite a few times, that there's, in the original planning approval for Nab Lane, and I've got it here, Bill, sorry, do you mind passing that forward to, just for reference, because it seems to disappear every now and again. In this planning application, there's a condition that says that if Nab Lane household waste recycling centre is closed for more than 12 months, it must be reverted to woodland in less than 18 months. And on Monday, it was the 1-year anniversary since Nab Lane was shut. Now, this condition, it's not just guidance, it's binding planning obligation. So can the Leader tell me, and the residents of Birstall, if this condition will now be triggered and whether the council will honour it by restoring the site to woodland as required, or will this once again show that the Cabinet lacks interest in the requirements of Birstall and Berkshire, and that yet again this Cabinet will in fact do whatever the hell it wants, to be honest.
Councillor Turner, I believe it's been referred to yourself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it has. So, in response, you're right, the planning permissions for the site stipulates that it must return to woodland within 18 months. Officers are aware of this requirement and will submit a request to vary the planning conditions, ensuring the submission takes place within that period. We cannot apply to vary a planning application. It's not set in stone, it can be changed. So ward councillors, which is clearly yourself, have previously been advised that the waste management team is collaborating with planning officers as part of the local plan's call for sites. They are assessing the potential of this location for industrial or employment purposes, which aligns with the operational requirements outlined above. Councillor Sheard was informed on December 24th that there remain many different options for the potential use of the future use of the site, which may or may not incur costs. The land will be held as part of the council's wider portfolio, as it's an operational decision as to what happens next. The site has been identified in a call for land as part of the local plan refresh, and this may significantly impact what activity is considered appropriate for it moving forward. Thank you.
Question 22, supplementary, Councillor Sheard.
Thank you. So this council and quite a few councillors, they've been quick to make statements and join protests on the problems of Gaza. Yet we hear nothing of the widespread persecution and genocide of Christians in countries like Nigeria, Pakistan, across North Africa and the Middle East, which has been taking place for decades. So does the Leader accept that if this council is actually serious about the commitment to human rights, that it must be applied equally to everyone, regardless of religion? And how will they show the same moral consistency by publicly supporting persecuted Christians and urge the government to act decisively to defend the Christian faith whilst it's under attack?
Councillor Pinnock, I believe this is referred to yourself.
Thank you. I'm going to deal with this one, I think. Councillor Sheard. So, thank you for the question.
it forced me to go away and do a little bit of research and do some reading around it. And I was clearly horrified by what I read. But there have been conflicts, lots of different types of conflicts going on in Nigeria for decades and decades. And I think this has only really come to the fore because Trump's taken an interest and the media are taking an interest in what's going on. And actually, my understanding is it's a very complex issue. Some of the information that's been provided hasn't been verified. And, you know, some are saying the information, there's misinformation or there's misrepresentation. And actually, some people are also saying the conflict in Nigeria isn't actually directed at Christians. So where do we go with that? That really creates some form of difficulty. I understand the sentiment and why you've put the question in. However, I feel that's more of an international, national issue, not a Kirklees Council issue. Our role, or my role I should say, is more around community cohesion in Kirklees, including the Nigerian community. And actually we have a fantastic Nigerian community right here in Kirklees, and we have them in my ward as well. And they are Christians. And no one's really brought anything like that to my attention. But it is something I will keep my eye on. I'll leave it there for now.
Question 23, supplementary, Councillor Brooke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After 16 months of works in the car park in the centre of Holmfirth, the project is still to get out of the ground. Making reference to the responses in the questions answered kindly by Councillor Crook, I would ask him if he could give some accurate clarity on which element of spring he'll be using for this one there, whether it be meteorological spring, which is March to May, or astronomical spring, which is March to June. Unfortunately, the businesses require a little bit more information on when this is going to take place so they can actually finally address their plans, and the affected businesses can plan with some clarity how they're going to go ahead. So please can you clarify when the...
Councillor Crook.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooke, for the opportunity to say something about our hometown. Just a quick note while we're on your question, and while we're talking about communications being clear. I understand that this question is about Holmfirth, but it's perhaps not so clear for those reading the public question, since you didn't include the place that you were talking about. So a good example of why clear and accurate communication is really important. I guess it's easy for any of us to make mistakes in comms, but I do know that officers are doing everything they can to be as available as possible and to deliver as much up-to-date information as possible, always whilst understanding that the picture is constantly changing in large civil engineering projects, and particularly when they're under the ground. I just want to say, to set context a little bit, that 3 generations of my family have been variously born, lived and sadly died in Holmfirth. I've been a school governor, a local charity trustee, brought up my own family here. My children are in local schools, and now it is my immense privilege to be an elected representative of my community and a councillor. So for the avoidance of any doubt, I am deeply rooted in, invested in, and I care passionately about the place and the community I am from and I am part of. Holmfirth is a fantastic place to visit, with a great deal to offer those who live there and visitors alike. There is a brilliant range of retail, leisure and hospitality, including world-class specialty coffee, which is my personal vice, clothes, food, gifts and entertainment, with the Pictodrome even bringing in big names and fans that follow. I make no apology for loving my town, for advertising and talking up our wonderful town at every opportunity. So I'm particularly angry when others seek to misrepresent me or officers. I work extremely hard to do everything I can to help and support my town, and its fantastic array of independent businesses. So when others seek for their own commercial or political or personal advantages, others who are not often from the town and do not represent my community, to talk down our town, to deliberately misrepresent our place, and those who work extremely hard to benefit our town, I make no apology for being angry at the damage these people do. I will continue to work to bring forward completion of the upgrade to our town, to help and to benefit its fantastic range of independent businesses, and to safeguard our heritage for the future. There is a huge and positive investment going into the upgrade of our town, which will positively benefit both our businesses and the wider community, as well as those who have the good fortune to visit and spend time with us.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. That brings us to 9 o'clock. We will therefore close the meeting. Thank you.